Hey guys, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. We're here for day one. I think they just got started not to maybe like we're probably about 15 minutes behind. So let's get into it, guys. Let's see how this goes. And let me see. Okay. They are making their appearances now. So I think she's reading. We're not too far behind. By the time they take one break, we'll be caught back up. So let's get into it. Uh, go over here.
Versus Maxwell Anderson, case 24 CF 1692, appearances.
ADA Ian Vance-Curzan and DDA Megan Newport appear for the state. Joining us at council table is Detective Joanne Donner.
Good morning. Maxwell Anderson appears in person with Attorney Anthony Cotton and Jason Findling.
Good morning, everybody. So welcome back. I hope you had a lovely evening. We are ready to now begin. At this point, I'm going to read to you the instructions, and then we're going to proceed into opening statements. Following that, we'll go right into our first witness. So before the trial begins, there are certain instructions you should have to better understand your functions as jurors and how you should conduct yourselves during a trial. Your duty is to decide this case based only on the evidence presented at trial and the law that I give to you. Anything you see or hear outside this courtroom is not evidence. All people deserve fair treatment in our system of justice, regardless of their race, national origin, religion, age, ability, gender, sexual orientation, education, income level, or any other personal characteristic. People make assumptions and form opinions from their own personal backgrounds and experiences, and generally we're aware of these things. But you should consider the possibility that you have biases of which you may not even be aware, which can affect how you evaluate information and make decisions. You must carefully evaluate the evidence and resist any urge to reach a verdict that is influenced by any bias for or against a party, witness, or attorney. Personal opinions, preferences, or biases have no place in a courtroom. Our goal is to treat all parties equally and to arrive at a just and proper verdict based on the evidence. Do not begin your deliberations and discussions of this case until all of the evidence is presented and I've instructed you on the law. Do not discuss this case among yourselves or with anyone else until your final deliberations in the jury room. This order is not limited to face-to-face conversations. It extends to all forms of electronic communications. Do not use any electronic devices such as mobile phone or computer, text or instant messaging, or social networking sites to send or receive any information about this case or your experience as a juror. We will stop or recess from time to time during the course of this trial, and you may be excused from the courtroom when it is necessary for me to hear legal arguments from the lawyers. If you come into contact with the parties, lawyers, or witnesses, do not speak with them. For their part, they will not contact or speak with you. Do not listen to any conversations about this case. Do not research any information that you personally think might be helpful to you in understanding the issues presented. Do not investigate this case on your own or visit the scene, either in person or by electronic means. Do not read any newspaper reports or listen to any news reports on the radio, television, over the internet, or any other electronic application or tool about this trial. Do not consult dictionaries, computers, electronic applications, social media, the internet, or other reference materials for additional information. Do not seek information regarding the public records of any party or witness on this case. Any information you obtain outside this courtroom could be misleading, inaccurate, or incomplete. Relying on this information is unfair because the parties would not have the opportunity to refute, explain, or correct it. Do not communicate with anyone about this trial or your experience as a juror while you're serving on this jury. Do not use a computer, cell phone, or other electronic device, including personal wearable electronics, applications, or tools with communication capabilities to share any information about this case. For example, do not communicate by telephone, blog post, email, text message, instant message, social media post, or in any other way on or off the computer. Do not permit anyone to communicate with you about this matter, either in person electronically, or by any other means. If anyone does so, despite your telling them not to, you should report that to me. I appreciate that it is tempting when you go home in the evening to discuss this case with another member of your household, but you may not do so. This case must be decided by you, the jurors, selected for this duty. People not serving on this jury have not heard the evidence, and it is improper for them to influence your deliberations and decisions in this case. After the trial is complete, you are free to communicate with anyone in any manner. These rules are intended to assure that jurors remain impartial throughout the course of the trial. If any juror has reason to believe that another juror has violated these rules, you should report that to me. If jurors do not comply with these rules, it could result in a new trial involving additional time and significant expense to the parties and the taxpayers. You are to decide this case solely on the evidence offered and received at trial. Now, an information is nothing more than a written formal accusation against a defendant charging the commission of one or more criminal acts. You are not to consider it as evidence against the defendant in any way. It does not raise any inference of guilt. The first count of the information in this case charges that Maxwell Anderson, on or about Tuesday, April 2nd of 2024, in Milwaukee County, Wisconsin, did cause the death of Sade Robinson, another human being, with the intent to kill that person contrary to Wisconsin statutes. To this charge, the defendant has entered a plea of not guilty, which means the state must prove every element of the offense charged beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, first-degree intentional homicide is defined in 940.01 of our criminal statutes and is committed by one who causes the death of another human being with the intent to kill that person or another. Before you may find the defendant guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, the state must prove by evidence which satisfies you beyond a reasonable doubt that the following two elements were present. One, that the defendant caused the death of Sade Robinson. Cause means that the defendant's act was a substantial factor in producing the death. The second element is the defendant acted with the intent to kill Sade Robinson. Intent to kill means that the defendant had the mental purpose to take the life of another human being, or was aware that his conduct was practically certain to cause the death of another human being. While the law requires that the defendant acted with the intent to kill, it does not require that the intent exists for any particular length of time before the act is committed. The act need not be brooded over, considered, or reflected upon for a week, a day, an hour, or even for a minute. There need not be any appreciable time between the formation of the intent and the act. The intent to kill must be formed at any time before the act, including the instant before the act, and must continue to exist at the time of the act. You cannot look into a person's mind to find intent. Intent to kill must be found, if found at all, from the defendant's acts, words, and statements, if any, and from all of the facts and circumstances in this case bearing upon intent. Intent should not be confused with motive. While proof of intent is necessary to a conviction, proof of motive is not. Motive refers to a person's reason for doing something. While motive may be shown as a circumstance to aid in establishing the guilt of a defendant, the state is not required to prove motive on the part of a defendant in order to convict. Evidence of motive does not by itself establish guilt. You should give it the weight you believe it deserves under all of the circumstances. If you are satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant caused the death of Sade Robinson with the intent to kill, you should find the defendant guilty of first-degree intentional homicide. If you are not so satisfied, you must find the defendant not guilty. Now, the second count of the information in this case charges that Maxwell Anderson, on or about Tuesday, April 2nd of 2024, in Milwaukee County, Wisconsin, did dismember a corpse with the intent to conceal a crime, contrary to Wisconsin statutes. To this charge, the defendant has also entered a plea of not guilty, which means the state must prove every element of this offense charge beyond a reasonable doubt. Section 940.11 sub 1 of our criminal code is violated by one who mutilates, disfigures, or dismembers a corpse with the intent to conceal a crime or avoid apprehension, prosecution, or conviction for a crime. Before you may find the defendant guilty of this offense, the state must prove by evidence that satisfies you beyond a reasonable doubt that the following two elements were present. Number one, that the defendant dismembered a corpse. Number two, The defendant dismembered a corpse with the intent to conceal a crime. This requires that the defendant acted with the purpose to conceal a crime. You cannot look into a person's mind to find intent. Intent must be found, if found at all, from the defendant's acts, words, and statements, if any, and from all of the facts and the circumstances in this case bearing upon intent. If you are satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that both elements of this offense have been proved, you should find the defendant guilty. If you are not so satisfied, you must find the defendant not guilty. The third count of the information in this case charges that Maxwell Anderson, on or about Tuesday, April 2nd of 2024, at 2926 West Lisbon Avenue in the city of Milwaukee, Milwaukee County, Wisconsin, by means of fire, did intentionally damage the property other than a building of Sade Robinson, valued at $100 or more, without that person's consent, contrary to Wisconsin statutes. To this charge, the defendant has also entered a plea of not guilty, which means the state must prove every element of the offense charged beyond a reasonable doubt. Arson is defined in 943.03 of our criminal code and is committed by one who, by means of fire, intentionally damages any property of another without the person's consent if the property is not a building and has a value of more than $100. Before you may find the defendant guilty of this offense, the state must prove by evidence which satisfies you beyond a reasonable doubt that the following 5 elements were present. Number 1, that the defendant intentionally damaged a 2020 Honda Civic by means of fire. Damage means injured, charred, defaced, and includes smoke damage. Intentionally means that the defendant must have had the mental purpose to damage the property of another by means of fire, or was aware that his conduct was practically certain to cause damage to the property. The second element is that the 2020 Honda Civic was the property of another. Property of another means property in which a person other than the defendant has a legal interest, which the defendant has no right to defeat or impair, even though the defendant may also have a legal interest in the property. The third element is that the defendant damaged the property by fire without the owner's consent or the consent of the owner's authorized agent. The fourth element is the value of the 2020 Honda Civic was $100 or more. The fifth element is that the defendant knew that the 2020 Honda Civic belonged to another person and that the person did not consent to the damage of the property and that the value of the property was $100 or more. You cannot look into a person's mind to find intent and knowledge. Intent and knowledge must be found, if found at all, from the defendant's acts, words, and statements, if any, and from all of the facts and circumstances in the case bearing upon intent and knowledge. If you're satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that all 5 elements of this offense have been proved, you should find the defendant guilty. If you are not so satisfied, you must find the defendant not guilty. The fourth count of the information in this case charges that Maxwell Anderson, on or about Tuesday, April 2nd of 2024, in Milwaukee County, Wisconsin, did hide a corpse with the intent to conceal a crime contrary to Wisconsin statutes. To this charge, the defendant has also entered a plea of not guilty, which means the state must prove every element of this offense charge beyond a reasonable doubt. Section 940.11 sub 2 of our criminal code is violated by one who hides or buries a corpse with the intent to conceal a crime. Before you may find the defendant guilty of this offense, the state must prove by evidence which satisfies you beyond a reasonable doubt that the following 2 elements were present. 1, that the defendant hid a corpse. 2, that the defendant hid a corpse with the intent to conceal a crime. This requires that the defendant acted with the purpose to conceal a crime. You cannot look into a person's mind to find intent. Intent must be found, if found at all, from the defendant's acts, words, and statements, if any, and from all of the facts and circumstances in the case bearing upon intent. If you're satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that both elements of this offense have been proven, you should find the defendant guilty. If you are not so satisfied, you must find the defendant not guilty. Now, evidence is, first, the sworn testimony of witnesses, both on direct and cross-examination, regardless of who calls the witness. Second, the exhibits the court receives, whether or not they go to the jury room. And third, any facts to which the lawyers have agreed or stipulated or which I direct you to find. You will not have a copy of the written transcript of this trial testimony available for use during deliberations. You must pay careful attention to all of the testimony because you must rely primarily on your memory of the evidence and testimony introduced during the course of this trial. You are not required to, but you may take notes during this trial, except during the opening statements and the closing arguments. I will provide you with these materials. In taking notes, be careful that it does not distract you from carefully listening to and observing the witnesses. You may rely on your notes to refresh your memory during your deliberations. Otherwise, they will be kept confidential. After the trial, the notes will be collected and destroyed. It is the duty of the jury to scrutinize and to weigh the testimony of witnesses and to determine the effect of the evidence as a whole. You are the sole judges of the credibility, that is, the believability of the witnesses and the weight to be given to their testimony. In your determination of credibility, you must avoid bias, conscious or unconscious, based on a witness's race, national origin, religion, age, ability, gender identity, sexual orientation, education, income level, or any other personal characteristic. In determining the credibility of each witness and the weight you give to the testimony of each witness, consider these factors: whether the witness has an interest or lack of interest in the result of the trial, the witness's conduct, appearance, and demeanor on the witness stand, the clearness or the lack of clearness of the witness's recollection, the opportunity the witness had for observing and for knowing the matters the witness testified about, the reasonableness of the witness's testimony, the apparent intelligence of the witness, bias or prejudice, if any has been shown, possible motives for falsifying testimony, and all other facts and circumstances during the trial which tend either to support or to discredit the testimony. Then give to the testimony of each witness the weight you believe it should receive. There's no magic way for you to evaluate the testimony. Instead, you should use your common sense and experience. In everyday life, you determine for yourselves the reliability of things people say to you. You should do the same thing here. In reaching your verdict, examine the evidence with care and caution. Act with judgment, reason, and prudence. Defendants are not required to prove their innocence. The law presumes every person charged with the commission of an offense to be innocent. This presumption requires a finding of not guilty, unless in your deliberations you find it is overcome by evidence that satisfies you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty. The burden of establishing every fact necessary to constitute guilt is upon the state. Before you can return a verdict of guilty, the evidence must satisfy you beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty. If you can reconcile the evidence upon any reasonable hypothesis consistent with the defendant's innocence, you must do so and return a verdict of not guilty. Now, the term reasonable doubt means a doubt based upon reason and common sense. It is a doubt for which a reason can be given, arising from a fair and rational consideration of the evidence or lack of evidence. It means such a doubt as would cause a person of ordinary prudence to pause or hesitate when called upon to act in the most important affairs of life. A reasonable doubt is not a doubt which is based on mere guesswork or speculation. A doubt which arises merely from sympathy or from fear to return a verdict of guilt is not a reasonable doubt. A reasonable doubt is not a doubt such as may be used to escape the responsibility of a decision. While it is your duty to give the defendant the benefit of every reasonable doubt, you are not to search for doubt. You are to search for the truth. The lawyers will now make their opening statements. And the purpose of an opening statement is to give the lawyers an opportunity to tell you what they expect the evidence will show, so you will have a better understanding of the evidence as it's introduced during the course of the trial. I must caution you, however, the opening statements are not evidence. State, are you prepared to proceed?
Yes?
Please do so.
Okay, real quick, let me interrupt. Last night we read the original complaint where they lay out at a very early time in the investigation what they had regarding Sade Robinson's death and the information that they'd collected regarding Maxwell Anderson. And baby, if I'm sure on top of whatever they have on top of that, I'm sure it's very compelling. Anyway, if last night, I'll probably make a playlist once we get to a couple more episodes, but this is starting today. Obviously, it's day one. We're getting ready to get into opening statements. We'll be caught back up as soon as they take one break. We'll be caught up. We're only like about 10, 15 minutes behind. But we're getting ready to hear what the state has to say about the case. And then I can't wait to hear what the defense has to say, because I mean, based on that affidavit last night, baby, I don't even know what he's going to come up with, but we're getting ready to find out. Okay. Girl.
Ladies and gentlemen, the judge just read you the preliminary instructions. That is the law that is to guide you as you listen to the evidence in this case. And what I'm going to ask you to do now and ask you to do at the end of trial is two things. And they're two things that the judge just mentioned during those instructions. Use your common sense and search for the truth. That is your job. Over the course of the rest of this week and into next week, you are going to hear testimony from the witness stand. You are going to see exhibits. You are going to see a lot of exhibits and hear a lot of testimony. And all of it at the end is going to boil down to your ability to use your common sense and search for the truth. Your duty is to come to a fair and rational conclusion as to what the evidence shows. And that's how you do that. You apply the law given to you by the judge to the facts that you decide occurred, and decide if Maxwell Anderson is guilty of the charges brought before this court. Maxwell Anderson is charged with 4 crimes that have just been defined to you related to the disappearance and murder of 19-year-old Sade Robinson that occurred on the night of April 1st, 2024 into April 2nd, 2024. Sade Robinson was a 19-year-old young woman. She had an apartment on the Lower East Side, 1858 North Commerce. She was in school. She worked a job. She worked at Pizza Shuttle on the Lower East Side. She was everything that you would expect a 19-year-old girl to be. That day, April 1st, 2024, Sade Robinson went to work at Pizza Shuttle like any other day. And she made plans to meet up with the defendant, Maxwell Anderson, that evening after work. And she wouldn't know it at the time that she left her apartment that morning, but she would never return. Sade and Maxwell Anderson met up for dinner and drinks at the Twisted Fisherman restaurant in Milwaukee. They then went to Duke's Bar on Water Street, and then they went back to Maxwell Anderson's house on the south side of Milwaukee around 9:20 in the evening on April 1st. After leaving Duke's and going to the defendant's house, Sade would never be seen alive again. That night, she was murdered by Maxwell Anderson. Her body was dismembered by Maxwell Anderson in a vicious and gruesome manner. And then Maxwell Anderson attempted to make her disappear from this world by discarding her body into body parts into Lake Michigan, and then taking her car and burning it behind an abandoned building near 30th and Lisbon. The evidence in this case is going to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Maxwell Anderson intentionally killed Sade Robinson and then sought to have her disappear from this world. He cut up her body, tried to get rid of her body parts, and tried to cover it up in any way that he could. For doing this, he has been charged with 4 crimes: first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, arson of property for burning the car, and hiding a corpse. The evidence in this case, the testimony you're going to hear, is going to be voluminous. The judge just told you you're going to be allowed to take notes throughout the course of this trial. I would strongly encourage that you do that. The reason for that is so that when you're back there deliberating at the end of this trial, you're able to look back and understand the significance of things that you heard and remember it, because there will be a lot. So I would encourage you to do so. But at the end of this trial, the evidence will establish that Maxwell Anderson is the one who killed and dismembered Sade Robinson, and it'll prove him guilty of those 4 crimes. This is my opportunity to summarize the evidence so that you have sort of a roadmap as the trial progresses. And so you understand the context of what you're hearing about when you hear about it. You are first going to hear about April 2nd, 2024. Around 5:20 in the evening, the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office and the Cudahy Police Department were dispatched to the shores of Lake Michigan near Warnemont Park. It was a particularly rainy day. The weather was pretty nasty that day. And two young men were walking the shores of Warnemont Park, and they found a human leg. And they called 911. That leg that they found would later be confirmed through DNA testing to be the leg of Sade Robinson. The leg was found down a large bluff at the park on the coastline of Lake Michigan. It's a very secluded location. You are going to see ample amount of photographs of that location. And investigators searched that area north and south of there significantly, thoroughly, but found no other human remains at the park. Now, this park and this location is near the Cudahy Water Department. Investigators also discovered that on April 2nd, April 1st into April 2nd, a vehicle had been used to ram the Service Gate Road near the Cudahy Water Department pump house. This is right next to, about 100 yards away from where the leg was found on the coastline. The Cudahy Water Department personnel reported this actually the morning of April 2nd, prior to the leg being found. Notably, where this gate was smashed, this gate takes you essentially down a service road that goes right down to the shoreline where this Cudahy Water Department pump house was located. And recovered right where this gate was smashed were pieces of a dark blue Honda Civic, 2020 Honda Civic. Sade Robinson had a dark blue 2020 Honda Civic. The pieces of that Honda Civic were recovered from that location. They were ultimately determined by an analyst from the state crime lab that they were not just from any Honda Civic, they were broken off of Sade Robinson's Honda Civic. Video was recovered from the Cudahy Water Department and the surrounding area. And the video showed that near the location of this gate, a dark blue vehicle, Sade Robinson's Honda Civic, entering the park and entering that service road where that gate is at 2:53 a.m. on April 2nd. The vehicle remains down that service road, and there's only one way in and one way out, down that service road for about an hour and a half, and departs that very same service road at 4:32 a.m. on April 2nd. Additionally, on April 2nd, just hours after that car departs the park, at 7:30 a.m., Sade Robinson's Honda Civic was intentionally set on fire behind an abandoned building near 30th and Lisbon. Later that day, April 2nd, 2024, Sade Robinson was reported missing to the Milwaukee Police Department. Friends and family, friends who knew she hadn't shown up for her work shift on April 2nd at Pizza Shuttle, hadn't heard from her, reported her missing. Police followed up. They checked her apartment at 1858 North Commerce Street. She wasn't there. No real signs of what happened. Police would then follow up on the missing persons report, speak to several family members and friends, and discover that she had gone on a date the evening of April 1st, after her work shift. They also learned what her phone number was, and they learned from her family and friends that she had an app called Life 360. Life 360 and the phone number, with that information, police obtained phone records from Verizon Wireless, the wireless company that serviced Sade's phone. And those phone records from Verizon Wireless and the records from Life 360 provided very crucial information about Sade Robinson's activities on the evening of April 1st and her whereabouts. Notably, the police discovered a text message conversation between Sade and a phone number that the police would later learn belonged to Maxwell Anderson. The text conversation showed that Sade and Maxwell Anderson were planning to meet at the Twisted Fisherman that evening to get food, and indeed did meet around 5:15 p.m. on April 1st. Additionally, the records from Verizon Wireless, as I indicated, provided location information for her phone that not only confirmed her trip to Twisted Fisherman, but would provide further location information all the way up until about 4:40 a.m. on April 2nd. Police would follow up at Twisted Fisherman, and then through her phone records, also learning that she had gone to Duke's on Water Street. And they got video from those two locations that confirmed that Sade Robinson and Maxwell Anderson met up that evening, first having dinner and drinks at the Twisted Fisherman, and then they went to Duke's on Water Street to hang out and have more drinks. Through all of that information, the phone data, the videos, investigators confirmed they were at Twisted Fisherman from 5:15 p.m. until 6:24 p.m. And then they went to Duke's on Water Street from 6:30 p.m. to about 9:04 p.m. Videos also confirmed that that evening, Sade Robinson was driving her 2020 Honda Civic, the same vehicle that was used to smash the gate at the Cudahy Water Department pump house. Now, this would be time for me to mention it's a common vehicle, Honda Civic. Everyone's heard of one, but it does have distinct features. Honda Civics have sort of distinct features that are going to be worth noting when we go through the evidence in this case. Hers was dark blue. It had a sunroof, and particularly 2020 Honda Civics have these unique sort of C-shaped lights in the rear, and you're going to see those, all features that are noticeable on video, which will become important. At 9:04 p.m., Sade Robinson and Maxwell Anderson left Duke's together, and they left Duke's and got into Sade Robinson's Honda Civic. Sade was driving, Maxwell Anderson was riding passenger, just the two of them. The phone location information from both Sade's phone and Maxwell Anderson's phones, as well as other surveillance videos that you'll see from downtown and the area near Maxwell Anderson's residence on the south side of Milwaukee, confirmed that they drove from Duke's on Water to Anderson's residence. They arrived at his residence around 9:24 p.m., and you will see video of Sade's car arriving at his residence, driving right by the front of his house and then into the alley. At the exact time, her phone location information is showing her phone arriving at his residence. Sade's phone remains at Maxwell Anderson's home up until about 12:45 a.m. on April 2nd. There's a video from across the street from Maxwell Anderson's home that shows silhouettes and movement in Maxwell Anderson's residence for the intervening about 3 hours. The time she gets there, the time her phone shows that they got there, up until about 12:45 a.m. Consistent with Maxwell Anderson and Sade being there. That video from across the street, beginning about 11:24 p.m., all the way up until about 12:45 a.m. on the 2nd, shows some movement beginning in the side yard near where the back door is, where he would come out and go in. That stops around 12:45 a.m. And any human movement that you can see in the upper window stops at 12:45 a.m. Also occurring right after 12:45 a.m., Sade Robinson's phone location information begins to show her phone moving away from Maxwell Anderson's residence, where it's been stationary since her car arrived there around 9:24 p.m. Now, this is a very crucial time in the timeline. And this is where the phone location information that investigators got from Verizon Wireless and Life 360 becomes extremely important. What occurs beginning just after 12:45 a.m. is that the victim's phone moves away from Maxwell Anderson's residence and begins to travel to various locations throughout Milwaukee County for the next few hours. And investigators were able to follow essentially a trail of videos where the victim's phone was showing her phone was at various times. From 12:45 a.m. all the way up until the approximate time her phone goes off the wireless network at 4:40 a.m. This is the time where that unique look of that Honda Civic is going to come into play for you all. You will see investigators followed where Sade's phone appeared to travel to and recovered videos around the county confirming that her car was traveling in those exact areas at those exact same times. So when the phone starts moving away from her residence just after 12:45 a.m., the records show her car driving northbound near 35th Street. Videos pick her car up driving in that exact direction. The phone then ends up downtown around 1 a.m. A camera downtown that actually is a license plate reader camera captures her plate downtown just after 1 a.m. The phone then travels up into the River West neighborhood where it remains until about 2 a.m. where cameras capture it again. It then leaves River West and heads westbound down Capitol Drive just after 2 a.m. where cameras catch it again. It then doubles back eastbound on Capitol Drive where cameras catch it again. And the records show it appears to get on the interstate and travel southbound towards and through downtown Milwaukee, and ultimately appear to exit the interstate just around 2:40 a.m., where cameras capture it again. The phone then, after exiting the interstate near College Avenue, heads east in the direction of Warnemont Park. Also captured by a trail of videos. And then by 2:53 a.m., video shows the Honda Civic arriving at Warnemont Park, which is the video I described before of the car smashing the pump house gate. Sade's phone shows her phone, her phone records show that her phone remained at Warnemont Park for about an hour and a half, the same amount of time that the car remained down that pump house road from the video. And in that time, police recovered video from that Cudahy Water Department pump house that overlooks Lake Michigan. That video, it's nighttime, it's dark, but it paints a telling tale. It shows, just after that car arrives, a silhouette of a person descending the bluffs near the coastline of Warnemont Park, near the Cudahy Water Department, where Sade Robinson's leg would later be found on April 2nd. That person, the evidence is going to show you, is Maxwell Anderson. This is the time where Sade's body was intentionally discarded into the lake after being dismembered. By this time, Sade is deceased, and Maxwell Anderson, using her own car, is trying to make her disappear. That video from the pump house confirms that he is down there for about an hour and a half before departing the pump house and departing Warnemont Park in her car around 4:30 a.m., which is exactly what the phone records show. Shortly after that, as the phone moves north, it goes off the network around 4:40 a.m. as it heads north into St. Francis towards downtown. Now, investigators also canvassed heavily near the area of where Sade's car was burned, way over on 30th and Lisbon on the north side of Milwaukee. And they also located a trail of videos from this location, picking up around 4:50 a.m., 10 minutes after Sade's phone appears to go off the network. And her Honda Civic is again picked up on those videos in the exact amount of time it would take to drive from where her phone went off the network to the location it's picked up on camera. That trail of videos shows her car, her 2020 Honda Civic, circling around the part of town where her vehicle would eventually be set on fire at 7:30 a.m. The Honda drives around from about 4:50 a.m. to 5:19 a.m., after which it is picked up next on a camera near a playground at 31st and Galena at 6:50 a.m. This is 1.5 blocks away from where her car would later be set on fire. The vehicle drives around more before pulling into the alley where it's set on fire. Police located video from a liquor store and a Milwaukee County Transit bus that depicts the time the vehicle fire was set. Now, you're not going to see it because he parked the car behind this abandoned building that did not obviously have functioning cameras. But these two videos show something crucial. They show two women walking down Lisbon Avenue who all of a sudden stop and begin to act in distress as they are clearly watching something disturbing happen. They are watching the fire being started. They are clearly shocked. They are clearly bothered on the video, which has audio. And right after they see this, a white male walks away from the area where the fire was set as one woman points at him and yells to the passing traffic, "He did that, call the fire department." You will see this white male on video. You will see the distinct clothing he's wearing as he's walking away from Sade's burning vehicle. He's got a dark gray hooded top. He's got dark pants, shoes with white soles, and he's wearing a large camouflaged backpack that appears to be very full. Police are able to follow an additional trail of videos of this person, the person walking away from her burning car. That trail of videos will show you that the person who lit Sade's car on fire at 7:30 a.m. boarded a Milwaukee County Transit bus on 35th and Lisbon at 8:12 a.m. And when that person gets on the bus, you will see their face clear as day on the bus camera video. It is him. It is Maxwell Anderson. He then takes the bus southbound on 35th Street and gets off the bus just blocks from his house. You will see that same vehicle, or that same video from across the street from his house that I mentioned before, showing him walking in his back door at 4:30 a.m., or excuse me, 8:43 a.m., right after he gets off the bus. These videos will prove that Maxwell Anderson lit Sade's car on fire, that no one else was with him. He did it behind an abandoned building in a part of town far from his home. Now, you're also going to hear that when police saturated the area, as well as family and friends who were not giving up on trying to figure out what happened to Sade, saturated the area where the car was burned, looking for any clues as to what happened to her. During these searches, family, friends, and police found Sade Robinson's other leg and other foot scattered and severed into pieces near that playground at 31st and Galena, just a block and a half away from where her car was set on fire. You will then hear that on April 18th, Sade's torso was discovered, having washed ashore on Lake Michigan in South Milwaukee. Sade's head had been intentionally cut off of her torso. Both of her legs intentionally severed from her torso. Her right arm intentionally severed from her torso. Her right breast intentionally cut off her torso. The torso was seriously decomposed, but identifying features confirmed it to be Sade. On May 11th, 2024, Sade's right arm was discovered having washed ashore on the shores of Waukegan, Illinois, severely decomposed. You will unfortunately see images of these body parts, which make it clear that Maxwell Anderson intentionally decapitated Sade Robinson, intentionally cut off both of her legs cut off her left arm, intentionally cut off her right breast, which has never been found, and intentionally cut off her head to date, which is still missing and has never been recovered. While horribly gruesome, this will show you the intent behind what happened to Sade and the intent behind making sure she was disposed of from this world. By April 4th, Maxwell Anderson was arrested by the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office, and you are going to hear that his cell phone was recovered from him, confirmed to be the same phone that Sade was texting on April 1st, the last text conversation Sade would ever have. Police searched Maxwell Anderson's phone. They searched his residence, trying in any way to learn more information about what happened to Sade. And while police did not locate any kind of gory scene in the residence, they located telling information in his residence and in his phone, including photos of Sade where she is laying on Maxwell Anderson's couch, face down, with his hand grabbing her right breast. And another photo of Sade's pants and her underwear being pulled off her body. The same pants and underwear that you're going to see that she was wearing on video when she went out with him that night on April 1st. And police actually find those pants and underwear in the trunk of her car after it had been burned. You will also hear from police who searched the area around Maxwell Anderson's residence and who recovered the dark gray sweatshirt that Maxwell Anderson was wearing during the time he lit Sade's vehicle on fire. You will see it's clearly visible on the bus video of him getting on the bus where his face is visible. And you're going to hear that hoodie had Maxwell Anderson's DNA on it and Sade's DNA on it. Additionally, you are going to hear from the medical examiner who examined the body parts that were recovered and was able to conclude that Sade's body was intentionally cut into pieces after her death. The medical examiner will describe the wounds to the body and what she noticed that showed the intentional severing of limbs, including the intentional severing of Sade's head. You are also going to hear and see evidence that the shores of Warnemont Park, where Sade Robinson's leg was found, were not unfamiliar to Maxwell Anderson. It was a place he knew well. It was a place he had taken a prior girlfriend to before, and that he called his secret beach. That's the location where Sade Robinson was discarded into Lake Michigan, a place he was familiar with and had taken a prior girlfriend to before. In total, what the evidence in this case is going to show is that Maxwell Anderson murdered Sade Robinson the night of April 1st into April 2nd. He then brutally and callously cut her apart, disposed of her body parts, and burned her car. Maxwell Anderson was the last person to text with Sade Robinson. He was the last person to be in public with Sade Robinson. He was the last person to have Sade Robinson's car. He was the last person to be with Sade Robinson. And the evidence will show that he is responsible for Sade's death. You will see, the evidence will show that what happened to Sade Robinson that night was not an accident. One does not end up going out to dinner and then going out for drinks on Water Street for a good time to being dead and cut up into pieces and discarded into Lake Michigan unless someone intends for that to happen. That's what the evidence will show happened to Sade Robinson. And the evidence will show Maxwell Anderson is responsible. At the end of this trial, I'm going to come back before you and again ask you to do what I asked you to do from the beginning, to use your common sense and search for the truth. And if you do those two things, you will find the defendant guilty.
Defense?
Good morning. The state began by using the phrase common sense. You heard it yesterday during jury selection, and you heard it again today in the state's opening. And they're using the phrase common sense because they want you to ignore the mountain of reasonable doubt that exists in this case. I want to start by telling you guys that much of what Mr. Vance-Curzan just talked to you about, we don't dispute. So a lot of this trial isn't in dispute. The timeline, the fact that Max met Sade, Max had met her, went on a date with her, that they went to the Twisted Fisherman, that they went to Duke's, that they were out together that night, that they went back to Max's house, none of that is in dispute. The fact that body parts wash up at Voir Park, the fact that body parts are found at 31st and Galena, the fact that those body parts belong to Sade, nobody here is disputing any of that. It's horrible what happened to Sade. It's horrible. Nobody deserved that. And what the state wants you to do is use the emotion of that along with this phrase like common sense and use that emotion to convict Mr. Anderson. But I implore you in this trial, your most important job as jurors is to study the evidence closely that's introduced by the district attorney's office. We have no burden of proof. Max is not required to prove anything. The entire burden lies here and rests here entirely on the district attorney's office. And it's the highest burden in the land to marshal together, to put together enough evidence to bring to you to show that Max killed Sade and that he committed those other crimes. There are a few pieces of evidence that the state will rely heavily on. Max near the scene of the car, Max when it's burning, Max being the last person to go on a date with Sade. And that's frankly why law enforcement zeroed in on Max. You are going to hear that the amount of law enforcement resources that were spent on this case by the Sheriff's Department, the Milwaukee Police Department, the FBI, the amount of resources that were spent on this case, I think is probably unparalleled in Milwaukee history. The amount of money and time and effort that was put into collecting video evidence, to searching Maxwell's home, to interviewing coworkers, interviewing people that might know him, an immense investigation. And the state knows that there are serious holes in their case. They know it. They know that there's reasonable doubt, and that's why they're coming at you with this phrase like common sense. So let's talk about that. There is absolutely no reason for Max to commit a crime like this. What you're going to hear in this trial is that Max and Sade lined up a date together like any couple of youngsters do, and they lined up a date at Twisted Fisherman. This is a place that Max used to work. You'll hear that they went there, they had dinner, and it was an ordinary evening. From Twisted Fisherman, as the state just told you, they went to Duke's. This is another place where Max is known. There was no secret place that Max took Sade that night, nowhere that anybody wouldn't have known him or recognized him. These are former places he worked and coworkers that he interacted with. And what I didn't hear was the theory of why Max did this, how Max did this, but I think what I heard in opening just now is that Max must have done this at his home. That seems to be the theory. Max brought Sade back to his home and killed her. Why? It's a normal date. You'll see them let camera footage leaving Duke's. You'll see them, Sade driving back to his place. You'll see them going there. In this timeline you were just given, I don't know how many witnesses they're going to call throughout this trial to put in this video or that video, but one thing you'll see throughout this is that we don't dispute any of that timeline, that they went out together and went back to Max's house, but that doesn't mean he killed her. How did he do it, and why did he do it? Why would he ever do something like that? If Max killed Sade in his home, if it happened in that location, as I think they're offering to you, there would be a mountain of DNA evidence. There would be blood. There would be some form of DNA. And I listened carefully when I heard the state's opening, because yes, it's gruesome. Yes, it's horrible. Nobody deserves it. But what was glaringly missing from what I heard was any discussion about DNA evidence. We have a crime lab in the state, law enforcement agencies that are tasked with collecting evidence from locations. I believe the theory that you're being offered today is that Sade was killed at Maxwell's house. What you'll hear about Max's house, I want to tell you a couple of things they didn't tell you. One is that the house is a duplex, upper and lower. There's a stairwell you can enter through the side of the home. If you go in the stairwell, there is a lower unit that has a tenant, if you will, a tenant who lives on the lower level. His name is Pete Warbington. You'll hear his testimony in this trial. Max lives upstairs. And the two of them went to that unit, that house. Pete Warbington, who's home on the lower level, is there that night. You will hear that Mr. Warbington is a self-described or self-professed light sleeper. I think one of the things he had said to the police is, even if one of Max's dogs is chewing a bone on the floor, he would even hear that and send messages to Max, your dog is chewing a bone, you're keeping me up, you're bothering me. He's a very light sleeper guy. And what Pete Warbington will tell you is that he was home, he was there that night, there was no struggle, there was no fight, there was no horrific event, argument between Max and Sade, but this is a downstairs tenant who can hear even the TV playing. He doesn't hear a thing, nothing, no struggle, no indication whatsoever that a murder is happening or happened upstairs. There is a common basement they share, but many of you can picture the type of home I'm describing, I'm sure. You walk in the door and it's a small stairwell that goes upstairs. So presumably their theory is that Max killed Sade upstairs. They didn't say it, they're suggesting the home, but upstairs, or maybe the basement is their theory. Either way, law enforcement pulled everything from that home. They searched it not once, but twice, 2 separate searches. You will also hear, by the way, that because of the publicity this case generated, other people had access to that home, social justice people who were riled up online, who showed up at the home, entered, put up banners, entered the home, had access to the area. You'll hear about that too. But law enforcement for sure searched the home twice. They didn't find a murder weapon. What weapon was used to kill Sade? They didn't find any of Sade's blood with all the samples they took throughout that entire house, every comforter, bed sheet, tabletop, wall, none of it has Sade's DNA, blood or DNA. And then I think the theory is that Max drove Sade's car and dismembered her, that Max did that. With what instruments? And you'll hear from medical examiners in this case that at least one medical examiner who will testify about the sheer force that would be required to remove human limbs. That's no easy task. It's not the kind of thing that you do with a little Swiss Army knife. It's the kind of thing that you do with things like bone saws that they use in autopsies, no evidence of which Max has ever been in possession of or ever researched anything. They looked at everything about Max. Internet history, text message history. His text messages with Sade weren't deleted. They looked through his search history. Has he researched how to cut up a body or how to kill someone? No, absolutely not. No evidence of that. You would expect that if she died at his house, as they are suggesting, that there would be blood and DNA in that home. Another thing that wasn't mentioned in opening. At Warmont Park, Sade's body, as you heard, a leg wash is located at Warmont Park. As law enforcement was looking through that area, they found bloody gloves. Now, these gloves played a central part in law enforcement's investigation because those gloves are sort of the quintessential evidence of a dismemberment or a murder. They have blood on them, they're plastic, sort of what you can picture, plastic gloves that you would wear, they're the clear type. And law enforcement, what they do is they try to determine, because they're certain you don't find bloody gloves near the scene, very close proximity to a leg. Certainly these gloves play some role in this crime. And so they look for any connection between Max and these gloves. They go to a place he volunteered at. They go to former places where he's worked. You'll hear that Max has worked at various bars in Milwaukee. He was a bartender is a bartender in the community. in that they looked at these gloves, these bloody gloves that were found by the leg, in that these gloves did not have Max Anderson's DNA on them. None. 1 in a quadrillion, or whatever the statistics are. They're not ever anything that he wore. And with respect to Sade's DNA, it's uninformative. Could be, could not be. Not able to rule it out. And not once do these gloves ever connect to Max, ever. Now, person that's seen him wear gloves like this, they don't match with the place he volunteered at. They don't match at any of the restaurants and kitchens that he's worked at. No connection. Sade's burning car. We know that the car is lit on fire near 30th in Lisbon or 31st in Lisbon, and you'll do with that what you will. I'll say this. The question is going to be, did Max light that car on fire? That's how you get to guilty or not guilty on the arson. Was Max the one who lit that car on fire? I find it interesting, and I hope you will too, that when we look at DNA evidence and we think about the importance of that type of evidence, the reason why it's so crucial is because we know from our human experiences that people can be wrong. We know people can be mistaken. We know that people can believe they saw something when they didn't see something. So I'm going to ask you, all of you, to implore you, study the evidence closely. When you're done with this trial and you take this back in the jury room, study everything very, very closely with a fine-tooth comb. Because eyewitnesses can be wrong, but the way we either prove or disprove it is we collect DNA swabs and we send things to our crime lab and we test them to see, does this link the person to an item? There is no accelerant or flammable liquid that connects to Max, nothing from his clothes where they can say, oh, this jacket he wore had gasoline or lighter fluid on it. But most significantly, they swabbed the exterior door handle of Sade Robinson's car. Her DNA is on her exterior door handle. Max's DNA is not. This is the same car that is burning in that area of 31st in Lisbon. And a person can be, we know from jury selection, in the wrong place at the wrong time. So what of all this video evidence that you just heard about in opening? That there's, and I told you as well, hundreds of hours of video footage that's pulled from Capitol Drive, Lisbon. Interestingly, you will hear, as Mr. Vance-Curzan just told you, that when Sade left Max's house, her car actually went to Commerce Street in the Lower East Side, actually right past where she lives. You'll hear that. But what's important about the video evidence, all the footage that they pulled from every, and you'll learn a lot in this trial, the amount of cameras as you can imagine exist, double it or triple it, what you might think is out there. Poll cams that the Milwaukee Police Department keeps throughout the city. Ring doorbells you'd never know are hidden in a certain spot. Convenience stores that have a camera on the side. All of this video, all the hundreds of hours of video of when Sade's, and I say 100-hour collectively because what you're talking about is all these videos that go back hours and they examine all of them. Not one time on any of the video footage do you ever see Max Anderson driving Sade Robinson's Civic, ever. You can see the car, but you can't ever conclude that he is the one who is driving this vehicle. It's a pure speculation. And his phone never leaves his house after Sade goes home. What would one expect to see after an offense like this? What would you expect to see happens with Max Anderson? Perhaps changes in one's appearance. Perhaps they flee town. Perhaps they're acting different and nervous and unusual at work. Nothing changed with Max Anderson's routine after he and Sade had their date together. Continued to go to work. You'll hear from coworkers that managers and coworkers that saw him, he continued going to his jobs. He didn't change his appearance. He didn't cut his hair. He didn't concoct some plan to leave town. He didn't try to talk to the downstairs tenant to concoct stories. None of that. And that's because he wasn't responsible for any of this. There'd be no reason for him to do those things. And when law enforcement did their investigation and began looking into things and looking for her blood and looking for her DNA, they were presented with the fact, and looking for Max on video driving her car, they were presented with the inescapable fact that all of it excludes him. And that's why you hear a phrase like common sense in voir dire and now. And I'm not telling you to ignore common sense, to be clear, not what we're saying. But when they emphasize a phrase like search for the truth, use common sense, it's at the exclusion of an equally, if not more important phrase, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Justice sometimes is hard to administer. Finding Max Anderson not guilty because there is reasonable doubt is your duty, as hard as that can be in cases where we know that they're particularly gruesome. But Max had nothing to do with these crimes. And the law says it's not enough for him to look guilty or maybe be guilty, or there's a few bad things that look bad. They have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And when you, as jurors, start to go into the jury room and examine these pieces of evidence, you will be confronted with nothing but reasonable doubt, and your duty is to return a not guilty verdict. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, we're going to pass out notebooks to you. When you get the notebook, put your number on the front so that we know to return it to you. Okay.
So I'm just going to say this. So I guess they're not going with any kind of a defense. It's just chipping away at what the prosecution says. So they have no alternate reason. You know, they had a great date. He has no clue what happened. She went on her merry way, and he finds out a couple days later something happened. After he just coincidentally was burning her car and she left without the clothes she was in. So, yeah. So I don't know how they're going to put that together. His lawyer's, I guess, trying to do the best with what he has, which is probably not a whole lot. Anyway, okay, let's hear. They're getting ready to get the first witness up. So let's get into it. Guys, welcome. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Hit the thumbs up. Thumbs up. Likes do matter, and I appreciate you guys supporting. I would not be able to get my work done if I was one of these clerks. I would be all up in the business listening to the trial.
Okay, state, call your first witness, please.
State calls Osiris Terrell.
Just put these in the jury instruction.
Sir, if you could just remain standing and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
If you please be seated, state and spell your name for the record.
My name is Osiris Terrell, OSYRUSTERRELL.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Terrell. Do you remember the evening in the 5 o'clock hour of April 2nd, 2024?
Yeah,
Why do you remember that time and day?
it was pretty miserable. It was raining like pretty bad.
Where were you?
I was over by the beach.
And where, are we talking about in Milwaukee?
Cudahy.
Okay, is there a particular park or area that that beach is associated with?
Warmont.
Warnemont Park?
Yes.
Okay, were you there with anyone?
Yeah, a buddy of mine.
Who is that?
Evan.
What's Evan's last name?
Ed, you couldn't ask me that a million times.
And you don't know?
No.
Okay, so what happened at the beach that made you remember this day?
We were walking down there and there was a severed leg.
A severed human leg?
Yes.
Okay, where was that?
It was near the end of the trail down there.
Before we get into more details about that, could you describe what this area is like?
It's pretty, there's a lot of clay falling it down from the cliff nearby. So it's pretty iffy if you can even get down there sometimes. And that week, it was raining pretty bad, like all week.
Okay, so you described the day that you were there as being pretty miserable in raining.
Yeah.
And you do you remember that it was raining previously in the week?
Yeah.
Okay, can you describe, Warnemont Park's a big area, right?
Sort of.
Okay, can you describe the area and how you would get down to the beach area that you're telling us about?
So there's two ways you can go down there. You can start from Sheridan Park and walk down the trail that way, but you're still gonna have to climb over a lot of stuff. The other way is there's like a gate on the south side that you can go down, but the hill is pretty steep. And even when you get down there, you have to climb through a couple trees just to get to the area. And it was raining for the past week, so it'd be pretty miserable to do it.
The gate that you're talking about, is that part of a paved road,
Yeah.
like a service road?
Yeah.
How did you become familiar with that area?
I've been going up and down that entire area for years.
If you were just in Warnemont Park, not down by the beach, would you necessarily be able to see this area?
Yeah, but there's a lot of trees in the way. You'd have to be like kind of at a weird angle.
And would that be like from the bluff area?
Yeah.
So you're down there with your friend, Evan, right?
Yeah.
Describe where you're walking when you see what you discover to be a human leg.
Kind of like the beach line, really rocky area. It was covered in clay and just stuff falling from the cliff. It's probably like this much ability to walk around the area.
Okay, and you're holding your hands out, maybe
Yeah.
at a
Yeah.
3 or 4 foot spread?
Yeah.
Okay. And what drew your attention to that bluff area?
It was just the intention the whole time. There's no other way we couldn't go back just because the waves were pretty like extreme that day. So we had to go over there and we just had no choice.
What drew your attention to the leg?
It was a pretty narrow path, so it's kind of hard to miss. At first we thought it was like a mannequin leg, but then we got a closer look and realized what it really was.
How'd that make you feel?
It's kind of hard to say even now. I don't think it's really hit me, but yeah.
What did you do?
We went up pretty much immediately, called the cops, and that's all I really remember from that time.
The police department came, right?
Yeah.
And did you have contact with a police officer or a couple police officers?
Yes, but most of the time I was in the car.
Okay. Were you down with the police officers on the beach area?
No.
You told them what you told us here today?
Yes.
I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Cross.
Did you see any other people down by the beach when you were there?
No, it's just us that day.
That's all.
State anything further?
No.
Thank you, sir. You may step down. State your next witness.
The state calls Officer Zachary Desmet.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
If you could please be seated, state and spell your name for the record.
Name is Zachary Desmet. First name is Zachary, Zachary. Last name Desmet, Desmet.
How are you employed?
The city of Cudahy.
As a police officer?
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been with the Cudahy Police Department?
4 years.
Were you working on April 2nd, 2024?
Yes, I was.
And were you dispatched to Warnemont Park that day?
Yes, I was.
Around what time?
It was in the afternoon, early evening, late afternoon.
What were you dispatched there for?
I was dispatched there for a caller reporting that they found a human leg on the beach.
Warnemont Park, is that in the city of Cudahy?
Yes, it is. We have two parks, Sheridan Park and Warnemont. They border each other.
So the Cudahy Police Department has jurisdiction over that area?
Typically, it's the sheriff's department that handles the parks, but if there's any imminent calls that come out or anybody that needs help immediately, we'll respond initially to stabilize the scene, and then it's usually turned over to the sheriff's department if needed.
Are you familiar with that area?
Yes, I am.
Can you describe the weather that day if you remember?
The weather was pretty rough. It was rainy, very cloudy, strong winds, especially down at the beach.
What did you do when you got there?
Excuse me. I arrived on scene traveling east on Pulaski Avenue, which comes from Lake Drive into the park. The water department is on the northeast corner of the intersection. Drive down, and then you'll come into with Sheridan Drive, and then there's another drive that leads down to the actual pump house with a gate. Arrived on scene, parked on Sheridan Drive facing north, and then observed two males in the field that would lead to the gate.
That location is in the County of Milwaukee, correct?
Yes, it is.
Describe I think what you described was like a service road with a gate.
Correct, yes.
Can you describe that further?
When you get, so there's the intersection, and then before you could turn right or south into Warnemont Golf Course or north onto Sheridan Drive. But then if you continue east, it's probably, I don't know, 20 yards worth of road, a service gate, and then there's a gap in the fence where people can walk themselves.
Did you notice anything unusual about the service gate when you arrived?
I did. I noticed that it was pretty heavily damaged.
So that's not a service gate that's like open to the public, right?
Not usually, no. I think only our water department has access to that.
Was there anything else aside from the gate being?
I just wanted to say real quick, right behind the prosecutor, the lady in the red blazer, that is Sade's mom. I was just trying to think of her name for a second. It'll come to me. But yeah, that is her mom right there in the red blazer.
Being damaged in that area?
Not initially when I observed, no.
But you said there were two individuals in a field.
Correct.
Were you able to identify those people?
Yes, we were.
Who were they?
It was Evan Millies and Osiris Terrell.
What did you later learn they were?
The people that discovered the leg down at the beach.
Was one of them the 911 caller?
Yes.
And did you have contact with them?
Yes, I did.
What happened next?
Well, I observed them to be, especially Mr. Millies, to be in a kind of a frantic state, obviously seeing something like that. They gave me a brief rundown that they think they found a human leg at the beach and wanted to show me where it was. So I had Mr. Terrell sit in the back of my squad car. I'm more familiar with Mr. Millies, so I had him take me down to the beach. We went through that side gate or at the opening in the fence where people can walk through freely. When you walk down, it's a steep hill because at that point of the park, it's very cliff-like. So there's the service drive down to the actual water pump house is very steep, so we walked down there.
Can you further describe that area?
Sure. So when you're walking down the service drive, like I said, it's very steep. It's wooded on both sides with a little bit of an embankment that goes up the sides of it. And when you get down to the bottom, it's actually brand new, renovated, I think last year or the year before. It's a pretty open area for vehicles to park. And then there's a building on the right-hand side that has a fence around it that I believe has 2 security cameras, barbed wire. It comes down to the lake. There's large rocks at the end of it where it immediately abuts with Lake Michigan.
What is that building?
That's the pump house.
Okay. And that is a Cudahy city-owned building.
Correct.
You said the newly renovated parking area, is that open to the public or is that for the pump house?
That's for the pump house.
Okay, so there's not another public access to that area, is there?
That's correct. There's not.
So can the general public drive a car down there?
No, they cannot.
Can you further describe, as you're going down there with Mr. Millies, how he directs you towards the leg?
Sure. So when we got down to the bottom, he had pointed me north from there. Obviously, there's a lot of debris on the beach, driftwood, rocks, etc. So I couldn't just clearly see it, especially with the distance. Now I am an evidence technician, so I know one thing that's really harped on in those trainings is keeping the scene secure and to not contaminate as needed. So my initial plan was where there's the parking lot, there's kind of a steep hillside next to it where you can walk down. However, it was kind of sketchy that day because of the wetness. So my initial plan was I was gonna have Mr. Millies stay up there. I was gonna go down to the beach and then have him point me in the right direction as well as yell direction to me. I attempted to do that, but after, like I said, with the wind and the waves crashing after about 20 yards, I couldn't even hear him anymore. So I reapproached him, had him come down with me. At that point, I had him walk in front of me. He had a jacket on, so I grabbed the back of his jacket just to be able to direct him. Or if I saw anything that I thought was of evidentiary value, I could direct him or prevent him from destroying or stepping on it.
Can you describe, once you leave like the parking lot pump house area, is there a path? Is it like is there a clear way to get to the beach from there?
Not really. Like I said, there's kind of a hillside on the side that is walkable, but again, depending on the conditions, it can be kind of iffy. That day was kind of rough, but we were able to get down there. The beach at that part is primarily rock, smaller rock, but still kind of generally unstable to walk on. And then you have the lake or Lake Michigan on your right-hand side or the east side. And then on the west side would be a steep cliff, essentially, from Warnimont and Sheridan Parks.
As you and Mr. Millies are going through that area, what, if anything, do you see?
So, like I said, there's a lot of water coming down off the sides of the cliff, a lot of debris. The waves were crashing pretty heavily. While I was walking down there before that, Mr. Millies told me that the leg was actually located on the side of the cliff, or the side of the embankment, about 10 to 15 feet up. So as we were walking north on the beach, that's where I was initially looking.
So it was up from the water line?
Yes.
Approximately how far?
10 to 15 feet, he said, up on the embankment.
At what point do you see it?
We were walking probably for a little bit, probably about 100, 125 yards. And like I said, we were both looking left to the cliff, and he was estimating and saying that like it should be right around here based on some things that he had seen. And then as we continued walking, he got startled really quick. And I was like, "What's up?" And he's like, "It's right there." And so I had moved him to the side, and about 5 to 8 feet in front of us was the leg was located there.
And where was it relative to the embankment?
It was close to it, probably within 10 to 15 feet from the embankment.
Given the rain, was there erosion that was happening?
Yeah, there's some pretty severe, even you could see different streams cutting lines into the sides of the cliffs.
What did you do next?
At that point, I radioed my dispatchers and advised them that the leg was there, was confirmed, to request MCSO's response to shut down the scene. The only ways into the scene are from the Pump House Road and the S-curve down in Sheridan Park, which would be a significant walk, and then advise them on how to get to my location.
Before we go further in that area, can you describe how you would access that area from Sheridan Park?
From Sheridan Park, which is quite a ways north, probably at least half a mile, I'd say, or somewhere in that ballpark. You have to walk down a path. It's a steep path, but it goes down. It is paved down to the beach. And then you'd have to walk further south. You'd have to walk south quite a ways on that beachfront to even get to that scene.
what, when you located the leg, what were your impressions? What were you able to readily discern?
I could readily see that it was, I believe to be a black female, a leg from either a late teenager or, younger black female. The leg was short and had pink nail polish on the toenails.
What did you do then?
At that point, I had Mr. Millie's stay. I put him on a rock, a bigger rock there. I told him to stay there, not move, and he stayed there until the MCSO, deputies Leon Martin and Michael Kruger arrived on scene, which at that point he was later escorted up there, back up the hill to where I would assume he would be interviewed further in depth.
So the sheriff's department joined you.
Correct.
In your walk with Mr. Millie's down the beach and in your observations in the area around the leg, was there anything else that you located?
I believe that on the way down there, Mr. Millie's made me aware that there was like a bra and maybe a t-shirt that were located, but he was unaware if it was related.
Then what did you do?
At that point, deputies Martin and Kruger took Mr. Millie's back up to interview him. Upon further investigation, I was looking at the leg that it was cut from the basically hip joint down to the foot. Other than that, the leg did not appear to be as disturbed, and I observed the cuts on the leg to be clean and not intentional, or intentional, I mean.
That the cuts were or were not intentional?
Were, that they were straight, not jagged, not torn.
Did you move the leg at all?
Yes, I did. I had to move it 2 or 3 times just because the time of the day, the waves were getting, like I said, we were getting some pretty good waves and they were moving further and further inland. So 2 or 3 times I had to move the legs further, or move the leg further west to prevent it from being taken by the water, which was documented on body camera as well.
How did you do that?
I grabbed it by the ankle with my left hand and under the thigh with my right hand, physically picked it up, moved it about 5-10 feet, set it down in the same way that it was laying, and then advised my dispatch to log that it had been moved.
Did it appear to have been in the water or decomposed?
It did not appear to be decomposing. It appeared to be fresh just based on my experience with other deceased humans. And there was a lack of blood. I didn't really see much blood on it at all, which also could be attributed to the rain that had been coming down.
That beach area, how would you describe the area in general?
It's usually pretty calm. We don't really ever get calls there mostly. Anything, it's usually like a dog complaint or someone just kind of loitering. But it's a beautiful area. It's not frequently traveled. It's hidden, secluded. Like I said, that was the second time I've ever been down there for an actual call.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Cross?
How long have you been a police officer?
4 years.
Okay, with Cudahy the whole time.
Yes, sir.
And Warmont Park is entirely within the geographical area of Cudahy, right?
Yes, sir.
And we have, would you agree with me that the park itself is 248 acres?
Sounds about right.
It has an 18-hole golf course,
Yes.
has a dog park.
Yes. Further south, much further south, the dog park is, but yes.
Right, because Warmont Park stretches along the coast of Lake Michigan, basically, right?
Correct, from about Pulaski Avenue down to College Avenue.
Exactly. And so there's walking trails, right?
Yes, there are.
And you said there's a dog park also at Warmont Park, right?
That's correct.
And doesn't the Oak Leaf Trail run through Warmont Park or into Warmont Park?
It does go through it.
Right, there's trails you can run on from Cudahy in Warmont Park and head north if you wanted to, right?
Yes, there's one paved path that goes to the park for the Oak Leaf Trail.
And there's even races that go through there. There's the South Shore Half Marathon, for example, that runs through that area, right?
There have been, yes.
So the park, when you say secluded, you're referring to that little beach area, but the park itself is not a secluded park, right?
That would be correct, yes.
In fact, it's a heavily trafficked park with lots of activities, right?
Yes, that part of the park where the pump house is located isn't as traveled as the other sections, but yes.
Right. And I think I heard you say before that a person, if they wanted to, can walk along the beach north to south or south to north. Didn't you say that?
Yes, I did.
In other words, where you find the leg, if a person had wanted to, they could walk up and down that beach north if they wanted to.
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, there's other parks that even connect in with it. There's Grant Park to the south, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
And Pulaski Park to the west,
Yes, but it doesn't really connect much.
and even Sheridan Park to the north, which you testified to, right?
Yes.
Thank you, that's all.
State?
Nothing further.
Thank you, officer. You may step down. State your next witness.
Deputy Leon Martin.
Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
If you could please be seated, state and spell your name for the record.
Name's Leon Martin, Leonmartin.
How are you employed?
Deputy Sheriff with the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office,
How long have you worked for the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office?
4 years.
You assigned to patrol, basically?
Yes, sir.
All right. Were you working back on April 2nd, 2024?
I was.
And what was your shift that day?
Second shift patrol,
What is second shift out in hours?
2 p.m. to 10 p.m.
Okay. Around 5:30 in the evening that day, were you dispatched to a call for service at Warnemont Park?
I was.
Is that at or near 5400 South Lake Drive in the city of Cudahy, Milwaukee County?
That's correct.
What was the nature of the call you were responding to?
There was a report of a possible human leg found on the beach at Warnemont Park.
And that was information conveyed to you by dispatch? So
Correct.
essentially you know what you're going
Correct.
towards? Okay. When you arrived on scene, were there other law enforcement already there?
There was.
Members of the Cudahy Police Department?
Yep.
Okay. What did you do when you got there?
Walked down, initially I parked at the top of the hill that leads down to the pump house. Was directed down the hill by other members of the Cudahy Police Department. Walked down the hill and was kind of flagged over to the area where police officers from Cudahy Police Department were already there.
This area that you walked down to would have been the pump house that is on the shores of Lake Michigan.
That's
fair?
correct.
When you got down there, were you guided to where this body part was recovered?
I was.
And were you wearing a body cam at the time?
I was.
I'm gonna have you take a look to your right if you can. On the screen here, I have what's marked as exhibit number 10. Do you recognize that?
I'll stipulate that's his body cam.
I'll play a clip from this first. This is exhibit number 10. The video is titled SUSP-5 Martin. I'm going to play a short clip here. All right, I paused it at 8 seconds, started it at 0. Can you orient us right now? Where are we?
So we're at the bottom of the hill. Right now I'm facing north, looking down towards the beach.
All right, and on the left side, there's that steep cliff embankment. If you went up on the top of that, that's where the park would be, correct?
Correct.
You are at the end of the service road here?
Yes,
And did you have to climb down anything to get to the location where this video picked up?
I did. There was large tree branches and like other foliage and whatnot that was in the way.
Not somewhere a vehicle could get to, fair?
Correct.
But you indicated earlier that you had walked down the service road, and at the end of the service road, what's there?
There's like a barrier, like a traffic barrier, and then the lake is there. So it's like a roundabout, so you can turn around and drive back up the hill.
So vehicles can essentially get all the way down to essentially the shoreline, but could not get down to where you are right now in this video.
That's correct.
What do you have to do to get down to where you are in this video?
I had to climb over a couple of large trees and just other like rocks and whatnot.
And How far did you have to walk to get to the leg?
That was about estimated, probably about 100 to 150 yards.
Where I have this video paused, you're basically at the start of that walk. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm gonna play it until 4:10. And there's no audio right now. When does the audio pick up?
Approximately 30 seconds.
That because that's how your body cameras work?
Correct. When you activate your body cam, it plays 30 seconds before you actually activate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good. I just cleaned my boots too, dude. Fuck, man.
Stand by. I have the on-call sheet. I'm trying to figure out what we can do.
Take that. All right. What's up, man?
So this is Evan Millies. We've dealt with him before. Sometimes mostly a good guy. He's gotten in this trouble a couple times, but good dude.
Okay.
So they walked down the S curve from Sheridan, started walking south just for fun, rough day on the beach. As they were walking, see that leg right there?
Yeah.
Said that it was up about approximately where the end of that stick, that branch is.
By the bushes right there.
Yeah, bushes. Said that they saw it up
So it's
there.
like up on the hill, kind of?
Yeah.
Okay.
So said that him and his buddy who's in my squad right now walked out, called us, and then when we came back, there was about, I don't know, maybe 7 feet east.
By the rock.
I moved it just for evidence purposes.
Okay, so they just swept away?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I documented it well on body cam with different angles of where it was. And
Okay, cool. All right, we got
You want to tell me where it is?
What's your name again, bud?
Evan.
Evan? Okay, Evan. How long were you out here?
About probably an hour.
An hour?
Yeah.
Okay. You usually come this way?
Yeah.
Yeah?
It's going
The
to be
first time you seen anything here?
Yeah.
Yeah? It's the first time you seen anything like this?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. All right, Evan. Just hang tight. Don't go anywhere, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That is 100% correct. Copy, thank you.
All right, hang on, Evan. We'll talk to you some more, okay?
And they dipped out up the water pump ways and then called us.
That's at least they called.
Paused your body camera at 4:09. The object's right here, Deputy. That's the leg, correct?
Correct.
Now, as we were watching that video, You're able to see the waves there were pretty violent. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
And it was a rainy day?
It was.
Did you observe any blood or any kind of thing like that near the leg?
I did not.
Or near the area where he had originally indicated the leg was found?
That's correct. There was no blood around the area or on the hill where it was initially found at.
What did you observe about the leg when you saw it?
The toenails were painted with pink nail polish. Based on the size of the leg, I could estimate that the person that the leg came from was rather short. The leg didn't appear to be decomposing in any type of way. So I was estimating that it had been placed there relatively, short time ago.
The other member of the sheriff's department that we saw in there.
Mhm.
So the person you first talked to, that was Officer Desmet, correct?
Correct.
The other member of the sheriff's department, who was that?
That's Deputy Michael Krieger.
Did you and Deputy Krieger canvass the scene or search the scene?
We did.
What did you find?
Nothing else of evidentiary value.
No other body parts, correct?
That's correct.
Was the medical examiner's office called to the scene?
They were.
Did they come?
They did.
Did they take possession of the leg?
They did.
Throughout that time, were there other members of your department who responded as well?
There were.
Did you search other areas, not just on the shoreline that we were watching on that video, but other areas of the park as well?
That's correct. At the top of the bluff that was on the left side of the video, that's a wooded area. Myself and multiple detectives and other MCSO personnel searched the wooded area and didn't find anything else.
I have no other questions.
Cross?
Good morning, officer.
Good morning.
So I just want to make sure I understand from where the parking lot is to the beach. So you said it's kind of like a wooded area?
Not necessarily. There's a steep slope, like a driveway to access the Warnemount Pump House. It's not necessarily a parking lot. It's just a service road that leads down to the pump house.
Okay, so to get from like the parking lot where the pump house is to the beach, is that flat or is it slanted or what's the terrain look like?
So it's like deteriorated from time and weather. So it's a steep hill that kind of goes down.
Okay, so it goes from parking lot, steep hill to the beach.
Correct.
And we could see on the video, it looks like the beach is quite small.
It is.
It's basically cliff, a little landing space, and then the water.
That's correct.
Is it always like that or do you not know?
I'm not too familiar with that particular beach. That was my first time actually being on that portion of the beach.
Okay, and you said that you didn't observe any blood or anything.
That's correct.
Did you observe any drag marks as like a body was dragged?
I did not.
Did you you said you didn't locate any evidence of evidentiary value?
That's correct.
So you didn't find like a saw?
No.
You didn't find an axe?
No.
Or any sort of knife?
That's correct.
And it looks like you're walking through, it's a pretty muddy area. It looks like it's made of maybe like clay.
Yeah, or mud or like sand and whatnot. It's not like a normal beach, like Bradford Beach or whatnot.
Okay. I have nothing further.
State?
Nothing else.
Thank you, Deputy.
Thank you, Judge.
Does anyone need a bathroom break on the jury? If you do, raise your hand. Okay, we're going to take a 10-minute morning break and then we'll come back and continue the testimony. Please leave your notebooks on your chair or on the bench in front of you.
Okay, they're taking a comfort break, but because we have a little bit of time, we're going to reclaim some of our time back. So we are actually, look at us back in real time. Hold on. Let's just make sure we don't miss a minute. Okay. Girl, because things are moving right along. It's like we're at witness number 4, I think. Okay.
On the record, we have the same appearance.
We're back on the record.
Call your 4th witness.
Yes, before I do that, I'd like to move Exhibit 10 in.
Any objection?
No.
10's received.
State calls Detective Joanne Donner.
solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You can please be seated, state and spell your name for the record.
Joanne Donner, JoannNDonner.
Good morning. How are you employed?
With the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office as a detective.
How long have you been with the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office?
Just under 25 years,
And how long a detective?
8.
Through your work as a detective, have you investigated homicides before?
I have.
Okay. Were you working as a detective back in April of 2024, specifically around April 1st and 2nd of 2024?
I was.
Were you dispatched to the area of Warnemont Park in Milwaukee County
I was.
on April 2nd?
That is correct.
In the evening time?
Approximately 6 p.m.
All right. And the nature of the call was for what?
for a severed human leg.
Can you tell us why the Cudahy Police Department contacted your department?
The Milwaukee County Parks are the jurisdiction of the Milwaukee County Sheriff's Office.
I have up on the TV screen, if you can see that from where you're seated, exhibit number 1. Do you recognize what exhibit number 1 is showing?
I do. It's an overview of the Sheridan and Warnemont Park lakefront area.
I would move exhibit number 1 into evidence.
Any objection?
No.
It's received.
And I'm going to show you now exhibit number 443, which is on the screen hopefully soon. All right, there we go. Can you see that?
I can.
And we're looking at another map, correct?
That is correct.
It's a map of Milwaukee County.
Correct.
I'd move 443 and it's the PNG file on the disk. It's a disk.
Any objection?
No.
It's received.
All right, and as we're looking at 443 here on the northern end of it, it kind of cuts out all the way at the top here, we see Silver Spring Drive, correct?
Correct.
That's not the northernmost tip of the county though, right?
No, it is not.
Okay, and I'm gonna zoom. There we go. All right. Back, if we go all the way to the south side of the map, we've got County Line Road. It's essentially where Racine County starts, fair?
That is correct.
And then if I'm zooming back up, on the right side, we have Lake Michigan, correct?
Correct.
And zooming in all the way over here, this is the location of Warnemont Park, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so we're sort of in the southeastern corner of the county as we're talking about what we're about to talk about, fair?
That's fair.
All right. Going back to exhibit number 1. I think this TV just takes a little longer. Sort of on the left side of the map here, what is this road?
South Lake Drive?
Okay, and we've got South Sheridan Drive that kind of runs through the park here, correct?
That's correct.
And the street, the southernmost street on this map is East Pulaski Avenue, correct?
That is correct.
East Pulaski Avenue comes and hits Sheridan Drive, and then this location, this road right here, what are we looking at? What is that?
That is the service drive to the pump house.
Okay. For the Cudahy Water Department.
That's correct.
The Cudahy Water Department is located where on here?
On the corner of Pulaski and South Lake Drive.
Right here?
That's correct.
All right. So this is the location of the Cudahy Water Department, but they also have this building that we've been talking about, the pump house, which is where my finger's pointing right now. Is that right?
That's right.
The lower right-hand corner of the map. Right above the Cudahy Water Department, we've got, it says Cudahy City Hall.
Correct. It also houses the police department.
So the police department and local government is in that building.
Correct.
The building north of that?
The high school.
All right. Where is, strike that, is there a gate when you get to the end of Pulaski Drive, heading east? Where is there a gate that takes you down to the pump house?
There is. It's right about where the M and the O are in Warnemont.
All right, where I'm pointing here?
Yes.
This road that would go down to the pump house, that's the only way you could get a vehicle down there. Is that fair to say?
That is correct.
Okay. And this stretch of shoreline right here Is this the stretch of shoreline that you were dispatched to that day, April 2nd, 2024?
Correct.
Was the human leg that was found there, where was it located? If you could approximate on this map,
Would you like me to show you?
if you could.
Approximately right here.
Okay, so let the record reflect the witness is pointing towards the shoreline, right about halfway up the page.
Any objection to that?
No.
Thank you.
Where would the entrance from Sheridan Park be?
It would not be shown here on this map. It's further north.
Okay. I'm changing it to Exhibit 443. So above, we see Warnemont Park here, and above that, that would be Sheridan Park, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and so it'd be up this road from Sheridan Drive, fair?
That's fair.
Okay. When you first got down to the shores of Lake Michigan at Warnemont Park on April 2nd, did you encounter Deputy Krieger?
I did.
All right, that's Krueger for the record. Were you kind of briefed on what had happened prior to your arrival?
I was.
What was the, albeit limited, information that you were given at that time?
I was to inform that there were 2 citizens that found the severed leg on the beach area and called Cudahy Police Department. From there, Cudahy called us due to its jurisdiction. Our 2 deputies then confirmed that there was a leg, secured the scene, and called for CID, Criminal Investigation Division, to respond.
And you were the detective from CID who responded?
That's correct.
Were there other detectives who eventually responded?
There were.
But essentially, the scene investigation, you were going to take over that, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. After being briefed by Deputy Krieger, what did you do?
I initially just kind of did a once over of the overall area to get an idea of what it was that I was dealing with. The conditions were very poor. That lower area next to the pump house was under construction. They were going to be paving a certain area and laying grass, but at that time it was gravel and a lot of mud and muck. I changed into boots and was guided by Deputy Krieger down the beach. To get to that area, there is a very narrow tree line, and then it's a precarious, steep decline. It's short, but it's very steep, that you have to actually hang on to trees and roots or you'll lose your footing. From there, it was about 100 to 150 yards to the location of the lake. That terrain was rocky. The rocks varied in size from pebbles all the way up to probably the size of cantaloupes. It was not an easy navigation to get to.
When you walked that 100 and 150 yards, what did you see?
There I saw what appeared to be the right leg of a Black female. Based on the condition, it appeared that it wasn't there for very long. I did not see any visible decomposition. The skin was very smooth, free of blemishes. I didn't see any noticeable scarring or any tattoos on it. The nail polish was a bright pink color, and it appeared that it might be from a younger woman.
What about its appearance did you take note of, if you want to elaborate on why you say that it appeared to be from a younger woman?
Just the condition of the skin. It had a very youthful appearance to it. It was not crepey. There was, like I said, there was no decomposition, so it was in very good condition.
What were you able to discern, if anything, about the size of this human?
At one point, we had to move the leg again due to the waves crashing up a little too close to it. Deputy Krieger picked it up upright with the foot to the ground and the thigh upwards. And I noticed that the leg appeared to be a little bit shorter than I was, and I'm 5'3". It also, size-wise, looked similar to my weight. At that time was 170 pounds.
Did you notice an obvious line where it had been dismembered from the body?
I did.
What did you observe about that?
When the leg was being moved, the fold of skin and flesh had moved away from the bone. You could see that it was severed below that top ball of the femur. It looked like it was a tool mark. It was very smooth all the way up to the end, and then it looks like it was snapped. It reminded me of a tree branch that you're sawing and you get so far and you're like, just gonna break it. It broke off and it was like a piece, jagged piece at the end. I noticed that the skin had kind of a long zigzag pattern to it, which is usually indicative of cutting rather than pulling to be ripped apart. That's why I was able to determine that it probably was not from like an accident, a boating accident, or anything like that.
Did you bring a camera?
I did.
Did you take photos of the scene as well as of the leg?
I did.
I'm going to show you exhibits 2 through 9. And I'm going to bring them up on the TV screen. But first, why don't you page through 2 through 9 and tell me if you recognize those.
I do. These are the photos that I took.
Not all of them, correct?
No, I took more than this.
Okay. I moved 2 through 9 into evidence.
Any objection?
No.
They're received.
All right, Detective, I'm going to bring up exhibits 2 through 9 on my screen here. If I bring one up that is not one that's in front of you, tell me. Okay, thank you. All right, let's start with, this is going to be exhibit number. Is this exhibit number 2?
It is.
Okay. What are we looking at?
This is a view of the beach shoreline area looking north.
Okay. The waves over here, they were pretty substantial that day.
They were in growing.
And through your experience with working with the sheriff's office, do you have any familiarity with the shores of Warnemont Park?
I do.
Do the tides change?
They do, dependent on the weather.
All right. And this weather on this day was what?
It was rainy. There was mixed sleet that day. The winds were really high. It was not a pleasant day.
And then off to the left side here is the leg.
That's correct.
This exhibit marker here, someone from your department put that there, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm going to move to exhibit 3. What are we looking at here?
This is taken from the same position as exhibit number 2. I just rotated and now we're looking southbound.
For purposes of sort of giving a visual as to how far you had to walk?
That's correct.
All right. And so I'm going to zoom here. There's 2 people. These would be investigators or people that were there on scene when you were doing your investigation, correct?
That's correct.
What are we looking at over here that I'm circling with my mouse, where this wave is crashing into?
So that's where the bottom of the hill, where the pump house is. It's that kind of paved area. Well, at that time it was not paved. And they have a break wall, and then there's the large boulders that go down into the lake. Just to the right of that is that rather steep embankment that I had to crawl down to get to the shoreline.
All right, so would that be where my mouse is right now?
Yes, it's a little hidden from view. Yes.
This sort of right angle here that I'm highlighting with my mouse, is that the pump house?
It is.
And that's kind of over the bluff there, over the cliff.
Correct.
Okay. So when you, and the service road would be also right by that pump house, correct?
Yes.
All right. Gonna go to exhibit 4. What is this?
This would be in, again, the same location. I'm just now looking west and up the bluff, just to demonstrate how steep that is as well.
And at the bottom, it's angled, but at the top here, it kind of actually gets vertical. Is that fair to say?
Correct.
One would have an extremely difficult, if not impossible, time trying to get down here from the top of that cliff, right?
Definitely.
Okay. Next exhibit. What are we looking at?
It is another picture of the leg.
Next exhibit. What number is this?
Number 6,
What are we looking at?
that is the top thigh portion of the leg.
And this is what you were describing before. What did you note about how it was cut?
You can see, if you mind, if I can get down to point.
You may.
Thank you. It's this large zigzag motion that led me to believe that it was an instrument that did the severing and not being ripped.
You said an instrument,
Correct.
and then you had also mentioned that part of what you were able to observe of the leg made you believe that an instrument stopped being used. Is that correct?
Yes.
Well,
On the
describe
bone
that again.
portion, yes.
Okay.
It's not visible in this photo. The flesh is covering that portion up again, but it does look smooth, like when you would cut a bone with a knife or saw.
Next exhibit. What number is this?
Number 7, and that shows her pink toenail polish.
All right, zoom in on that. This is exhibit number 8. What is this?
This is again, the top of the thigh portion where you can again see the rather Z-like jagged serration marks.
Lastly, exhibit 9.
Again, just showing the location of the leg. At this point, it had been moved a few times. Still laying in the same position, like still facing the same direction, just had to move it closer to the embankment there.
Do you recall about how far up the leg was described originally to have been when Evan and Osiris found it?
Probably be about 10 to 15 feet. It'd be right about where that bush is in the photo, that dark spot.
Where I'm circling?
Correct.
Okay. Did you assist with other investigators in searching the other parts of that coastline?
Correct.
And I'm specifically talking about down by the water, not up on the cliff.
Just in my travels back and forth between my squad and to the leg, I would search as I would go by to look for anything else. I did not find anything else.
Were other members of your department out there searching as well?
Yes.
And where nothing else was found?
No.
About how far up and down the coastline were people searching?
I do not know how far they went to the north, but I do know that they did also go to the north of the leg location, but we did search rather extensively from the leg to the south.
Okay. Did you make a request of the Coast Guard?
I did. I asked to see if they could come with their searchlights to scan the bluff area. We were starting to lose light at that point. They denied our request due to the weather.
Was Was the area of the bluff searched nevertheless?
It was.
And how about up above the bluff in the wood line? Were investigators also heavily searching that area?
We did. It was due to have a snowstorm that night, and I was worried about losing any potential evidence to a snow cover. That's when Detective Colehop and Detective Bacon also responded to the scene, and along with the deputies on the scene and Officer Desmet, we all started to comb that upper area. It's a lot of very narrow paths, I guess. They're just worn down between the tree line and that parkway area that you see. We went through there extensively trying to find anything else and did not find any other evidence.
Okay, I want to actually bring back up, I want to say this is going to be exhibit number 3 on the screen. Do you see that?
I do.
Okay. Now, obviously, you came down here and were able to walk to where you were standing. You walked in a northern direction to get to where you're standing when you took this picture. Is there a way to walk? Is there a path essentially that would get you down over to the other side of the pump house, or is it kind of rocky and treacherous along there?
It is. It's similar to that on top of the bluff area. The path south of the pump house is very narrow and it's just dirt. I did not go any farther south just because I didn't feel it was safe.
No other body parts were located in the area of Warnemont Park, is that correct?
That's correct.
The medical examiner's office came and took possession of the leg?
They did.
Was it assigned case number 24-02296?
It was.
And their role was to conduct an autopsy of the leg at that time, right?
That's correct.
In addition to looking for other body parts, did you look for any other items that you thought might have some value?
I did.
And did you take note of anything?
I did not.
Okay. Any clothing found?
There was a t-shirt and a bra, and that would have been very close to that initial tree line where you'd have to walk down. The bra was under driftwood and kind of covered with sand. The same with the t-shirt. It was up and off a little ways. They appeared to have been there for a while.
They were soaked?
They were.
Okay. And you say appeared to have been there for a while and they were covered by like driftwood, you said?
Debris, sand, and pieces of charred wood.
Did it appear they were naturally covered by that stuff or like someone tried to bury them?
Naturally.
Okay, so your takeaway essentially was that you believe those had been there for a while.
Correct.
Is this a location where you've seen other stuff like that since you've been back there after this date?
Nothing really clothing wise. It appears that there might be a place that kids like to go to have fires right next to the parking lot area. That's where the charred wood is. Sometimes you'll find beer cans and things like that, but that's the only things that I've really found since I've been there.
And you're specifically talking about this area sort of right by where that pump house service road ends, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that's the location where this bra and shirt was found?
Correct.
The following day, April 3rd, 2024, were you contacted by the Milwaukee Police Department?
I was.
What was the nature of that contact?
I was asked to call an officer, Nora Burlow, that she had taken a welfare check the prior night for a Sade Robinson who had been reported missing by a coworker.
Was there another report to Milwaukee Police regarding Miss Robinson?
There was. Officer Burlow told me that she noticed this welfare check because it was an area that they don't often get called to, being Sade Robinson's apartment on North Commerce. When she opened the call up, she noticed that there was an associated call for a burnt out car earlier that morning, and that really piqued her interest, and that's when she went to the apartment.
In response to learning that information from the Milwaukee Police Department, did you look into Sade Robinson's demographics?
I did.
And did Sade's description, through what you were able to find, seem to match the description of the leg that you had recovered at Warnemont Park?
It did, according to the DOT demographics. She appeared to be the same height and weight and skin coloring of the leg.
Just a few other questions about this topic, Detective Donner. In the days, weeks, time period after April 2nd, when you first went to Warnemont Park, were there other searches of the park involving canine units?
There were.
Do you know how many?
I don't know the specific number for Warnemont Park, but I believe we had a total of 8 canine searches in various different areas. We had ground penetrating radar, as well as a specialized unit that does water searches as well.
Who is that?
That's Bruce's Legacy.
It's
A volunteer group. Mhm.
Okay. And they came out to the location that we see here in Exhibit 1 and searched the coastline near where the leg was found?
They did on a couple of occasions, yes.
Do you know exactly how many, or do you just know it was more than one?
I believe it was 2.
Nothing found?
No, nothing was found.
Was a drone unit ever flown around this area to try to find more body parts?
It was for a better view of the bluffs, yes.
What did that yield?
Nothing.
And were dive teams used to go into Lake Michigan near this location to attempt to locate more body parts?
They were.
And was anything ever found there?
No, there wasn't.
The area depicted in Exhibit 1, that shoreline, how many times have you been there?
Probably a couple dozen since April 1st of last year.
Do you ever see anybody else down in that area of the shoreline where the leg was found?
Objection relevance.
I'll allow it, you can answer it.
Not on the shoreline portion. On the upper portion, I would see people walking their dogs, but not actually down by the lake.
I have no other questions at this time. This is a witness I would recall at a later time for a different topic.
Understood. Cross-examination?
Thank you, Detective. Good morning.
Good morning.
You said that in the times you've been there, you've noticed a spot where kids hang out, and you said something about noticing beer cans. Did I hear that correctly?
That's correct.
And that's near the parking area by the pump house is where you're describing that?
Correct.
You say kids hang out. Did you ever have contact with kids that were hanging out there, or you're just using that as a generalization based on what you see?
I spent 15 years on our parks unit in various forms, from mounted patrol to working in a squad. And when we would get called down to that area for smoke, that's where they would always be. And they generally were underage.
Okay, so you're talking people under 21 is what you mean?
Correct.
By underage. And this time when you went there, so it was April 1st?
Or April 2nd, I'm sorry.
April 2nd was the first, when you went there for the leg, right?
Correct.
Was that the first time you had been to Warnemont Park, or in your 15 years prior, had you been there on other occasions?
I've been there on other occasions.
Okay, so when you're saying a couple dozen times before to the jury, are you talking since April 2nd, couple dozen times in the last year, right?
Yes.
But then many times before that?
Yes, I'm enough to be familiar with it, yes.
Got it. You said the conditions that day, obviously we can see the photos, windy, stormy, waves, all accurate description, right?
Correct.
Eventually, at some point, 2 gloves were found, were they not?
Yes, I did not do that, but yes,
Okay, you weren't involved in that.
I was not.
You weren't called to the scene to recover those?
I was not.
So you played no role in any glove recovery?
No,
You just know about it as the lead detective?
correct.
Now, the day, April 2nd, when you were there, you said you called in a canine search. Did you do that?
No, not on that day. It was, I do believe, the next day.
April 3rd.
Yes,
In the canine search, just so the jury understands, is a cadaver dog, you could call it, right?
that's correct.
In other words, you can give the dog a scent and it knows to look for human scent, right?
That's correct.
Blood and things like that trigger this dog,
Correct.
as opposed to looking for animals.
That's correct.
And the canine dog was used the next day and found nothing.
No, not that, to my knowledge, they did not find anything.
Were you involved in the canine handling?
I was not.
The ground penetrating radar that was used, did you use the ground penetrating radar?
No, I was not present for any of the searches. Generally, the way it works, I then become the orchestrator of the investigation, and I rarely go back out.
Got it. So so questions about what Bruce's legacy did or ground penetrating radar, you're not there for that.
I was there for one of Bruce's legacies.
Those are the underwater divers that look for things.
Not actual divers. They have sonar equipment that they put underwater that have cameras.
Now, let's focus on April 2nd when you were there that day. We saw when the state was showing you pictures of the beach line area. Could you pull up the pictures again, Ian? Okay, so this is Exhibit 3, Detective Don. Does that look familiar?
Yes,
Do you have the actual printed photos in front of you?
I do.
Could I just have those?
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
So Exhibit 3, on Exhibit 3, we can see all the way down the beach line towards the pump house. Is that fair to say?
That's correct.
And if I heard you correctly, if I heard you correctly before, I thought because of the conditions, you were deprived of bringing in Coast Guard personnel, right?
That's correct.
So you can make a request, but it's not honored because it's too dangerous.
Correct.
So the search that was conducted on April 2nd is essentially of that shoreline down to that pump house. Is that fair to say?
Correct. And on the top of the bluff.
And the top of the bluff. South of the pump house, not that day.
Not that day, no.
And that's primarily due to the conditions, I assume.
Correct.
As the lead detective, you are aware of the fact that these bloody gloves were found south of the pump house on a later date.
Correct.
Those are all my questions for this topic. Thank you.
Jake?
Nothing further.
Thank you, Detective. State your next witness.
Frank Miller.
Sir, if you could please remain standing and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So
Yes, I
help
do.
you God? Thank you. If you could please be seated, state and spell your name for the record.
Francis Miller, Francis Miller.
How are you employed, sir?
I'm currently semi-retired and working for a consulting firm managing the Cudahy Water Utility part-time. Prior to that, up until December 31st of 2024, I was the water superintendent for the city of Cudahy. In the last 4 years, I was the director of public works and water for the city of Cudahy.
All right. So you worked for the Cudahy Water Department for your career.
Yes, sir.
And even after retiring, you're working with them again?
Yes, I am on a part-time basis.
All right. I got what's marked and entered as Exhibit 1 up on the TV screen next to you. I trust you're able to see that from where you are?
Yes, I can.
And I take it based on your answer to those questions about where you work, you recognize this area?
Yes, it's an overhead view of the Cudahy High School and Pulaski Avenue that heads down to the city's water pumping station on the shore of Lake Michigan.
The building I'm pointing to here, that would be,
That's the city's water treatment facility at 5110 South Lake Drive.
all right, and then the building down here, that's the pump house.
That is the city's pump house. It pumps fresh water from Lake Michigan to the treatment plant.
All right. To get from this building, the water treatment facility,
Yes,
all the way to the pump house,
yes.
you'd go down Pulaski Avenue, what would you encounter?
At the top of the hill, just after the intersection of Pulaski Avenue and Sheridan Drive, there's a large gate, a 2-section gate that's locked to prevent vehicles from going down to that pump house.
Who has the keys to that lock?
Cudahy Water Department personnel, Cudahy Fire Department, and the Cudahy Police Department.
I want to take you back, sir, to around April 1st and 2nd of 2024. Around those days, specifically on April 2nd, did you come into contact with the Cudahy Police Department regarding your gate?
Yes, I was contacted. On April 1st, we had a contractor doing some paving along the lakefront at our pump house. The morning of April 2nd, an inspector who was going down to look at the job called me to tell me that overnight someone had rammed the gate going down to the pump house. He sent me a couple pictures. When I looked at the pictures, I called Cudahy Dispatch, asked if it were possible to have an officer meet me at Pulaski Avenue to fill out a police report, standard for us to be able to file an insurance claim.
Was that an unusual occurrence for the gate to be smashed?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall about the time that you reported that to the Cudahy Police?
Somewhere around 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning.
On April 2nd?
On April 2nd, Tuesday.
And to the best of your knowledge, April 1st, going into the night of April 1st into April 2nd, no issues with the gate?
There were no issues with the gate when the contractors left approximately 4 p.m. on Monday, April 1st.
That gate and that road, would that essentially be the only way to get a car down to the pump house?
Yes, it is.
It's kind of a steep downhill decline, correct?
It's very steep and there's no other access.
Sir, can you take your microphone and bend it like this? That might, if you just bend it down like that, it'll stop the whistling. I think.
Oh, I'm sorry. Is that better?
We'll find out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, I've got all those here. When you went out to the gate, what did you observe?
The gate had been hit really, really hard. It's a large industrial fence gate. The post that it was in had been moved and there were plastic car parts like you would see from the front of a car that had a collision laying around on the pavement.
I'm going to show you some photographs, sir. I'm going to start with exhibits 13 through 26. Just page through this and tell me if you recognize any or all of those photos.
I recognize many of the photos. Many of them are similar to photos I took. I may have taken a few of these. There's like 1 or 2 photos here that I'm not sure if I've seen before.
Sure. Why don't you pull out the ones you know you've seen before?
the ones I've seen before, sir.
All right, so, you recognize these as being from the area of the pump house gate? I don't know what's causing that.
I don't.
Do you recognize these all from being from the area of the pump house gate from that time?
Yes, I do.
All right, so I'm gonna move in at 13, 14, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No.
Those are received.
I can take these. Thank you. And I'm gonna ask to publish.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Exhibit 13 here on the screen. What is this? Or what did it appear to be when you were there and saw it?
Looked like it came from the front end of a car, the plastic front end pieces around your headlights and stuff. It looked like it was a piece of that.
And you saw those pieces yourself?
Yes.
On scene?
When I stopped to look while I was waiting for the County PD to show up, I saw them myself.
Maybe try putting it back up. Maybe I was wrong.
We'll figure it out.
Maybe it's my voice.
Now, obviously, this isn't the only photo of the parts we're gonna see, but before we go further, was there something about these parts that led you to believe what kind of vehicle it was?
Several of them, when you looked on the inside, were marked Honda. And if you did a quick internet search on your phone with some of the part numbers, it popped up with models that it possibly could have been, and the Civic popped up quite a bit.
The Civic.
Honda Civic.
Exhibit 14. This is one of those pieces you discussed with the Honda.
Correct.
All right, that's written at the bottom.
It's written on the bottom in the black plastic.
And so you did your own searches of those.
It was natural curiosity while I was waiting for the police officer to show up.
Exhibit 19. What are we looking at?
That's looking down Pulaski Avenue, heading east towards the lake. And at the top of the photo are the gates that were struck.
Okay, so behind you would be, behind the photographer here would be Sheridan.
Would be Sheridan Drive, and then if you keep going west, Lake Drive.
And this is the broken gate.
Those are the broken gates.
Is this how you first saw it when you went out there?
No, it's not. That's how our utility staff pulled those apart to try and get some idea how we could secure the road for the evening that night.
How did they appear when you first saw them?
When I first saw them, the gates were together. They're normally latched with a large chain that keeps both sections together. Those gates were caved in. The poles, the posts on each side, right and left, that hold those gates were both shifted and loose in the ground, so the gates were kind of collapsing.
All right, were you able to discern whether a car would have been able to get through there?
A car was not able to get through the way I saw the gates when I got there,
When you saw them?
when I saw them.
Okay. Let's look at the left side of the frame here. You see what I'm circling with my finger?
Looks like some plastic car parts.
Are these the parts that you saw?
Yes.
Okay. Different view of similar vantage point. Exhibit 20. There's a forge on the left, correct?
Correct. We have a construction project going on for several months.
All right. 21.
The
Is this an angle?
same area.
Do you know if that's where is this where you originally observed the car parts, or did somebody sort of gather them up and move them there?
Those have been, look like they've been moved over from where I originally saw them.
Where did you originally see them?
They were more scattered on the road when the first time I showed up when I saw them.
Near the gate or somewhere else?
Near the gate and kind of to the left, look at from our view, but near the gate.
Exhibit 22. Another Honda part, correct?
Correct.
Exhibit 23. Another Honda part with what appears to be like a product number.
Yes, and that's one of them that I did a quick search on. It popped up with Honda Civic.
Okay, so one of these numbers here in the middle, you were able to search that number on the internet and find out that it likely came from a Honda Civic.
Correct.
Exhibit 24. Another piece of Honda parts.
Yes.
25. Zoom out a little bit here.
That picture looks like what the area looked like when I pulled up with car parts scattered around and the fence askew.
Okay, so this is more of what you first saw when you got down there that morning.
Correct,
And in the foreground, there are some of those parts there.
correct.
Exhibit 26. Just another view of the gate.
Another view of the gate. And that may have been taken from my car. I'm not sure. It almost looks like my dashboard.
What's the number on that one?
This is exhibit 26.
Thank you.
Other than what we saw in the photographs there, were there other noticeable car parts? And by noticeable, what I'm asking you, sir, is you were able to identify what part of the car they belonged to?
Nothing that I can recall. Everything I saw seemed like it came from the front end of the car and were the black plastic parts that we've discussed already.
Okay, so you specifically believe these have come from the front end?
That's my belief.
What made you believe that? Just from what you searched?
It just seemed like it made sense. They look like they're parts from the front end of a car that you typically find if you've ever hit a deer or something. It looked like the same thing. It looked like someone just hit the gate with the front end of their car. It's a dark area.
All right, I'm going to show you exhibits 216 through 223. See if you just recognize what is in those photos, and if so, set them aside.
Yes, I recognize them.
They all appear photos taken at or around that date?
Correct. They look like they're taken at that site at that time.
Okay, I'd move 216 through 223 into evidence.
Any objection?
No.
They're received.
We'll go through these. Smash gate, correct?
Yes,
217,
it's another picture of the same gate before any of my people touched it.
218,
That's a picture of the post that holds the gate up.
that's the post you were talking about before?
Correct.
Okay. 219 shows sort of the whole post, correct?
Yes,
And then 220, a Honda part,
yes, correct.
221,
Another Honda part.
222,
Another car part that's, I couldn't identify that as Honda or not. It doesn't have the markings on it, but it's another car part that was there.
look like it would be from like the front of a car.
That's what I would think, but I'm not an auto body guy.
That's fair. What makes you think that though?
It just seems, it looks like it'd be a headlight or a marker light from the front of a car.
All right, and last 223, another car, correct?
Correct.
Does the Cudahy Water Department have operational surveillance cameras?
Yes, we do.
And were you familiar with how they operated?
Yes.
Okay. Did there come a time where someone from the sheriff's office came to you to try to retrieve video from your cameras?
Yes, Wednesday morning, we were contacted by the sheriff's department and Cudahy PD, and they explained they were going to send a sheriff's detective over to review the footage we had from our cameras.
Did that happen?
Yes, it did.
And did either you provide them with video or they recover video from?
They gave me a specific day and time frame that they wanted video for, and we copied the video to a hard drive and delivered it to the Cudahy Police Department.
All right. the cameras you had, there were cameras both from
The filtration plant?
the filtration plant here as well as the pump house.
Correct.
And you provided those videos to law enforcement.
Yes, sir.
Do you recall whether or not those cameras were accurate to date and time, or were they about 30 minutes off?
They were off. There'd been a power outage, and we didn't notice it until the officers were reviewing the film that we didn't update the time on the DVR.
Okay, so it would have, the power outage would have set the time back, so it was about 30 minutes off?
Correct.
And that was something you discovered, that it was 30 minutes fast when you were reviewing it with the law enforcement?
As the officers were reviewing the video, we noticed the dates, the timestamps didn't make sense. We looked at the current timestamp compared to the current time at that moment and realized how far they were off.
I have nothing else.
Cross?
There's nothing hidden about this driveway, you would agree, right?
No, it's the public who lives in the area is aware it's there.
I'm sorry?
People who live in the area are aware it is there.
Comes right off of Sheridan Drive, right?
Correct.
And Pulaski runs right into it.
Correct.
And that's the reason there's gates there, because you don't want the general public just going on down there, right?
Correct.
What year did those gates go up?
Those exact gates went up sometime in the mid 2000s, but there has been some type of gate there for as long as I've worked for the utility, since 1990.
Okay, and if a person wanted to by foot, for example, they could sort of finagle their way around the side of that gate. You would agree with that, right?
Yes.
That's all.
State?
Nothing else, Judge.
Thank you. You may step down, Mr. Miller. State, do you have a quick witness?
No, I do have another witness. It's not going to be quick, though.
Do you want to start, maybe? 10 minutes?
I think it would be a good time to pause.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, then we'll begin our lunch break. We're going to kick back up this afternoon at 1:45. Remember, those admonitions become even more important now. So no discussing anything as you walk out together. Don't do any research, any investigation. Don't do any posting about anything. Just put this matter completely out of your mind until you come back this afternoon. Also, remember to wear your badges real visible so that everybody knows you're a juror. If you need extra badges, I believe they're in the juror room, or my bailiffs can get them for you. We're going to start at 1:45, so if you could come back between 1:15 and 1:45, we'll have the jury room open. And I need all of you present in order to start at 1:45, so please give yourselves extra time to get through the security protocols. Any issues? Then leave your notebooks on your chairs, please, and have a lovely lunch, and we'll see you back this afternoon. Thanks, everybody. Feel free to bring back with you coffee, water, and soda for the afternoon, okay?
Okay, Judge, bring back water, bring back a beverage, okay? Water, coffee, or soda, okay? Look at the Wisconsin Wheels of Justice. I mean, they just want it to be nice and comfortable. They have an oscillating fan, yeah.
On the record before we break for lunch?
No.
Defense, anything to address on the record?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, have a nice lunch. We'll see you back by 1:45, please.
Bring back some Waddy. Okay, let's talk about first of all, if they get into, I was waiting for our prosecutor dude to come through with the video footage at the pump station, because if we see Maxwell in the Civic, baby, sir, you're cooked. Okay, they already have you getting out of the Civic on 30th Street in Lisbon. If you were not here last night, we read the complete 10-page arrest affidavit, or the affidavit for an arrest warrant. So if you have not heard that, go to last night. It was an hour video. It probably took us like 40 minutes to read the whole thing, but it's interesting. So if you hadn't gotten a chance to see that last night, go check it out. It gives you a nice overview of how they pinpointed Max to begin with, but just like the overwhelming amount of evidence that they were able to put together in like 48 hours. Like it was literally, I hate using that word. It was literally a 48-hour episode because based on the timeline in the document, by April 3rd, not saying that they already knew they had their man, but there was so much information they were collecting. They were, first of all, she's a missing person. A friend notified that she was missing. She hadn't showed up to work. So people who care and loved her were paying attention and noticed that she wasn't around and made the appropriate phone calls. And it was like, sometimes we hear about people who are missing and you don't hear about it fast enough. It's been a few days. You know what I mean? Like literally the next day, the friend had a bad feeling. She saw a Snapchat saying that she was getting ready to go in for the date and then didn't hear anything else and thought that was weird. And was, that's a beautiful thing that she had good friends. I hate that she did not make it from that first date, but unfortunately, or that she thought it was a first date. Really, she was being preyed upon, which is awful. But yeah, a lot of things connected very quickly to get to this point, because I know we see court cases that carry on forever. And this, it's just like, things just kind of fell into place. So like they're showing that he rammed that gate and pieces of her car's falling off. We're just willing to take a bet at this point that when he set her car on fire, the car when they found the vehicle, I'm sure that her vehicle is missing some pieces. And those are the pieces that are down by the pump station where her body, where some of her remains were located, on top of the fact that her phone was pinging down there as well. And Dan Maxwell was the last person to be seen with her and her vehicle and her things. And her DNA was on his sweatshirt, right? It's just a lot. I'm sure his lawyer, I don't know what his lawyer's defense is going to be. It's going to be interesting to hear what their defense is. I think I heard that does he have an alibi? I don't know what his additional alibi is, but it can't be very good. This is crazy. But yeah, I don't know why I can't think of her mother's name, but I know her mom's last name is Scarborough. And when you see the mother, she has such an overwhelming sense of sadness, which obviously, right? It's painful to see her. Like she just, it's so sad. It's so sad. Like her grief is, it's tangible, like you can just feel it. It's really, really, really horrible. So yeah. Everyone is at lunch. Are you guys having lunch yet? Is Bougie Gang enjoying lunch? I didn't want to shut this down because I was like, we'll just leave it up, because if I shut it down, start back a whole new live, we're just gonna keep it cute and just keep this live up. and see how it goes. Maybe later, I might set up for like AM, like for a morning session and a later session, but for right now, we're just going to keep it as it is. They're going to try to pin it on the light sleeper. I mean, but what's he been doing for a year and a half? Wouldn't they have investigated that? Also, would he still have a tenant at this point? I think he's the homeowner, Maxwell. So I don't know, girl. I have no idea. These days, people are so trackable. It's ridiculous. After that thing that happened with the man, Mr. Patel down there in Georgia, um, I'm gonna be honest, just seeing how to like down to the aisle, that the eye in the sky can see you. I almost feel, you know what I mean? Like I feel very safe almost everywhere to a certain degree because everything is being monitored at this point. You're eating ice. Oh, that's a wonderful lunch. No, I'm just kidding. I'm an ice chewer myself too. Um let them cameras in the sky watch because anybody who's doing anything, baby, it's going to be caught on like 25 cameras. I don't know how anybody can think. And then the license plate readers, everything. So they talked about the video footage from the pump house. They're talking about it, which means they're going to show it to us, right? So at a certain point, it's like, can you please make it make sense why you and Sade Robinson were on a date? She was at your house, but you want us to believe that you have nothing to do with this situation. And you want us to believe that she rammed a gate down over to the pump house? Come on now. And why are you walking? Don't you have a vehicle? So you met her because the whole time you planned to get a ride to lure her probably back to your house. I want to hear this scenario, like what they came up with as a scenario as to why he lured her back, if they have any kind of, you know, if they have any of that type of thought, like what his plan was or what, which I guess they're going to get to that because some of you, if you don't know this story, so apparently he has a friend who he had confided in that he was planning to do this thing. I don't know if he specifically said Sade. Let me see if I can find it. He basically told a friend who thought he was full of shit that he was going to take somebody out and he was going to do this, he was going to kill somebody. Let me see if I can find it. And that person, I'm not sure what triggered them, but there was a tip also that was called in to the police regarding Maxwell Anderson. Let me see. The guy didn't think he was serious. He thought he was like just talking. Let me see if I can find it. Confidential informant. Let me see. Confidential. So there was, let's see. Okay, I don't know what this is. Let's see if this is what I heard. Um, let me see. Confidential informant. Okay. I don't know if it's going to talk about this or not. So, homicide suspect Maxwell Anderson told a friend he planned to kill college student Sade Robinson and dismember her body in early March, nearly a month before Robinson went missing and was later reported dead, according to search warrants unsealed this week. A friend told investigators Anderson walked them through the basement. A friend told investigators Anderson walked them through the basement of his home and unveiled step by step how he intended to commit the crime. According to the warrants, which were unsealed and made public about 90 days after Anderson was arrested in Robinson's death, Milwaukee Police Detective Ryan Bergman spoke with the friend identified in the documents as confidential informant who has known Anderson 2 to 3 years. On April 15th, that is nearly 2 weeks after the first remains of Robinson's were discovered on April 2nd, the warrant states that the informant went to Anderson's South 39th Street home on the night of March 5th. During the encounter, Anderson took the informant into the basement. In one room, there was a card table and a TV. In the other room was covered a plastic painter tarp with a sanitation sink and 3 saws visible, according to the informant. The informant stated, well, this is going to have to come out. The informant stated that the tarp was taped to the floor and the ceiling, covering the walls and the floor. The document reads, according to the warrant, the informant told investigators Anderson stated he intended to kill Robinson, a Milwaukee area technical college student whom he had recently met. The informant states that Anderson told them he intended to bring Robinson to his residence, pulling a handgun on her and then bringing her down into the basement of the residence. The document reads, then he planned on shooting Robinson and dismember the body in the room where they were in. Anderson then planned on disposing of Robinson's body throughout the city, the warrant said. How this person knew this, I do not know. A search of Anderson's home was conducted on April 4th, centered in the living area and the second floor. After speaking with the informant, investigators conducted another search, one that focused on the basement on April 17th. During the second search, plumbing and the sanitary tub and laundry and cushions from a leather couch were examined. Investigators also took swabs of stains that were discovered on the couch and the cushions and collected debris from a clay sewer pipe underneath the concrete basement slab. Anderson is 33 years old and is charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilation of a corpse, and arson in Anderson's death. He has pled not guilty and not guilty to the charge and has been unable to post $5 million bond for his release from the Milwaukee County Jail since April 4th arrest. Anderson is scheduled to be in court in September for a motion and final pretrial hearing. Trial is set for December 9th. Well, we know that didn't happen because it is May 28th and they are just getting started. So, boom. That's basically where we're at, but you can see, so I guess I mean, it sounds like he met her to do her in. Like there just doesn't seem to be any ifs, ands, or buts about it. It just seems like he met her with the intention of no good. It's sad that she thought she was going on a date, and it was basically he was running a play, setting her up for her own demise. Let's see. Here's what we know about Maxwell Anderson's history, legal issues. July 14th, flight from Delafield. Anderson was charged with 2 misdemeanor counts of disorderly conduct and a physical altercation with a relative. A little background check. He pled guilty to 1 count in October 2014 and paid a fine. In 2015, charged with 4 misdemeanors of domestic abuse. 2015, he pled guilty to 3 of them: criminal damage to property, intimidating a witness, and disorderly conduct. He looks crazy to me. I'm not even gonna lie. He looks like a freaking crazy person. 2019, he was charged with 2 misdemeanors for a fight in Milwaukee, battery, which was dismissed, disorderly conduct, to which Anderson pled guilty. It's like he's a problem. 2022, Anderson received his 2nd drunken driving offense and pled guilty. Cited with driving while suspended. That month, Anderson's probation agent reported Anderson was testing positive for cocaine, THC, and alcohol. A mess. Anderson was arrested April 4th, 2024, and charged with killing and dismembering 19-year-old Sade Robinson, who was way too pretty for him. You say, why plead guilty if you were very intentional? I'm not sure what you're talking about. His offenses that he pled guilty to. This one, when you're saying he was charged with 2 misdemeanors, a fight, and the battery was dismissed, the disorderly conduct is what he pled guilty to. Is that what you're talking about? I'm not sure. So let's see. But yeah, that confidential informant, I think, it's crazy, right? It's almost like how people say, like, Diddy would tell them, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and people are like stunned. I'm wondering, when he told the friend what he planned to do, and I wonder if it's just kind of like, what? I don't know. And then what do you do if you go tell on someone? Like, someone tells you, this is what I'm getting ready to go do. You go run tell it. Nothing happens. He cancels his plans, and then you come up as plan B. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of one of those, for someone to tell you something like that, they have to be insane. So it's almost like, well, whether I get her, if you tell it, I'm going to get you. I don't know. They haven't brought that up as a thing. I don't know that they found evidence of that, or I don't know. It might have been. I mean, it could have just been she was beautiful. You know, it could have been, I don't know. We don't know anything. I don't know that this man has even talked. I don't know. I'm gonna be honest with you. He could have just been this beautiful woman. Like she actually responded. He could have just been flipping through and trying to get somebody to respond. And you know what I mean? She was trying, what I mean? Who knows? I don't know how they, I think they met online, but I'm not sure exactly how they met. But yeah, I don't know. He looks like a complete weirdo. I don't know. It doesn't even sound like he snapped. Not that that would give any reason. It sounds like, according to the confidential informant, who probably has packed up and left, I would be gone. I would be somewhere where that man could never find me. Because if, on top of the fact that they'd already found a bunch of stuff, and the things were coming together in terms of the police investigation of the missing person, which was Sade. Family, friends called her missing. Her car all of a sudden shows up, and then all of these weird things happening at the park and body parts being discovered around town. Then you've got the confidential informant saying, oh, and by the way, yeah, he told me about this crazy plan like a month ago. I didn't even know he knew anybody. You know what I mean? Like, this person might have just been like, I thought he was lying. He didn't even have a girlfriend. How would I know? Like, because if they foil the plan and then you don't have a crime, then this guy will come for him, or whoever the confidential informant is, male or female. And it's crazy. I just know that if someone had told me a plan like that, they would never have they wouldn't have to worry about me. They would never see me again. And then I would be dropping a tip on the tip line, like on the computer. I wouldn't even be a confidential informant. They would have to catch me through the computer, through the confidential tip line. And I would have to drop it like that, like go to Best Buy and use their computer or something like. I wouldn't want any attachment to dropping the information, because this guy is crazy. Look at him. That. Oh, and then his look in court. Look how pretty she is. She looks like a model. Beautiful eyes, high cheekbones. She's very beautiful. Sad. Very, very sad. When the judge said, okay, we're going to get back at 1:45, try to make sure to be back by 1:15, it's like the jury have just enough time to like run to their car, go get their sandwich, and come right on back. That's what I would do. I would just go ahead and pack, go ahead, get Jersey Mike's on my way home, and just get no mayonnaise and have my sandwich ready in the car, in my cooler, and have a little thing of mayonnaise and put my mayonnaise and my oil and vinegar, and I would be sitting in my car with my salt and vinegar chips and a nice cold water and do it like that, or have my little lunch ready for the microwave or salad or something. No, he's not even attractive, Kina. There might be some microaggression there. I mean, sis is beautiful. She was she had striking features, pretty, you know, you never know. Oh, I always make you really? Oh, girl. Mm. It's already wait, she said they were gonna convene at girl, did she say what time did she say? She said they were coming back at what time? Hold on, let me get the judge's instruction again. I think she said an hour, right? I know they're not getting 2 hours for lunch. Hold on, let me check and see. Where's my headphones?
Important now. So no discussing anything as you walk out together. Don't do any research.
For as long as I've worked for the utility.
They could sort of.
He looks just
finagle their
like,
way around this.
on top of looking like Where's Waldo, he also reminds me of Hugh Jackman, but he definitely looks like Where's Waldo first. If he put on a Waldo hat, he'd be through. He's got the same thickness and hair and all of that, but he also gives a little bit of Hugh Jackman's cousin. Not Hugh Jackman per se, but Hugh Jackman like adjacent, like, Jonathan Jackman. You know what I mean?
Side of that gate. You would agree with that, right?
State witness.
No, I think it would be a good time.
We're going to kick back up this afternoon at 1:45. Remember, those admonitions become even more important.
She said 1:45. They got a long time to go. That's a 2-hour break. We're talking 1:45 Milwaukee. Y'all, we got a long ass break. 1:45 Milwaukee. That's an hour and a half from now. They're getting a long lunch. You think he's giving a bootleg Ryan Reynolds? Wow. Okay, let's do this. I hate to shut this down, but we might go ahead and shut this down. So 1:45 is 2:45 our time. Maybe we could do a quick Sonya's dream. I know there's a video we hadn't reacted to. There's actually 2, maybe 3. Girl, we also didn't talk about this, Miss Janice. Girl, Miss Janice, why? I never thought I would see a rich woman like this repeating her outfit, but she has on the exact one of her same outfits from 2 weeks ago. It's like, where is Miss Janice's court attire? They got her rerunning outfits very quickly. They might need to refresh her wardrobe over there at the apartment in New York. I don't know what's going on, but anyway, I guess we do have a couple things we could talk about real quick and take a quick lunch break. So let's pivot. Let's shut this down because we got 2:45. Milwaukee is an hour behind East Coast. So for any of my Central Time people, any of my Wisconsinites, you know exactly it was 1:45. Yeah, she said 1:45. I couldn't believe she said 1:45. That's a 2-hour lunch break, right? You think he doesn't look like no. Oh, you think Maxwell is giving Kurt Cobain? Girl. He looks like Curtis Cobain. He looks like the big jaw cousin to Kurt, because Kurt Cobain was actually kind of cute. This guy got a big old girl. His face is giving. He's got issues. Clearly, something's wrong with sir. Yeah. I could see what you're talking about, though. I do see, but maybe a little bit of like his cousin or something. Yeah, Kurt Cobain was a nice looking guy. He really was before he got really strung out on heroin. Okay. Let's go ahead and shut this down. We're gonna shut it down. Let me set up another one. To come back at 2:45. I can't believe they're getting 2 hours for lunch, but sis is not playing. They're already going to be on witness number 5, and they're moving right along, and I'm not mad. That way it's less strenuous on the family. Because I'm sure mom has to work. Or maybe, she has a life. She has another daughter. Let's just say this real quick. Sade left behind a sister. She left behind her mother. She has a father. So the family, you know what I mean? They have to go on without her. And to sit and have to take time for the dog and pony show of Maxwell's lawyer trying to play like Maxwell doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. I'm sure it's probably very stressful. I'm sure it's probably very stressful. So the sooner they can run through this information, the better, to be able to get some justice for Sade, and be able to spend their time, in her memory rather than, her most horrible last few days, right? Or her worst day, right? Which was her last day, unfortunately. Okay. Let me shut this down, and then we'll do like a quick little what's going on type thing, and then I'll restart at 2:45. It's just, you guys already know I got mom duties at a certain point, so you guys will be handling business. Well, I'll be watching and listening too, but you guys know it'll you know how I do when we have these trial days. Okay. Anyway, okay. All right. Let me take this down. It's very stressful. I know that, you know what, but the comfort is that the family, there's a lot of people supporting them. There was a lady on the news yesterday who, cause they were talking about the gallery, that there were lots of observers in the court. And they were talking to a lady on the news, and she said, she doesn't know the family. She said that she just wanted to be a silent supporter in the gallery for the family, because she had lost a daughter also, and she just wanted to be in support, just be there in solidarity, to offer some support. So I'm saying that to say, I think the family knows that they're getting a lot of positive energy from all over. Anywhere that this story has touched has fostered a lot of concern, and people are sending them lots of love and positivity. So this is horrible. Okay, I'm going to set this up. I'm going to set up the next one for after lunch, because baby, we can't sit for 2 hours and do nothing. That's not even going to fly. All right. I'll see you guys in a minute. Make sure to just kind of sit, and I'll be back in like 2 minutes. Okay. Bye guys.